So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the son of a dragon god, an archangel, and Ada. Vil King Naruto x Gabriel x Grayfia Lucifuge x Tiamat High School DxD. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. Echoes of Trinity. The wind carried the scent of ozone and burning earth. Naruto crouched on a charred branch, his breath controlled despite the exertion of the past hour. Blood trickled from a gash above his left eyebrow, momentarily blurring his vision before he wiped it away with a grimy forearm. Below him, the clearing bore the scars of a battle unlike anything he had experienced in his 19 years. This wasn't in the mission parameters, he muttered, scanning the destruction. Trees had been uprooted, the ground bore massive furrows, and residual energy, not chakra, something else, still crackled in the air. The mission had been classified as B rank. Investigate unusual energy signatures near the border of Fire Country. Simple reconnaissance. No contact expected. Instead, his four-person squad Ha-D encountered beings that moved like shadows between reality, wielding powers that defied classification. Sakura, he called out, keeping his voice low. Shikamaru, sigh. A rustling to his right preceded Sakura's appearance. Her medical pouch was nearly empty, its contents used treating the civilians they'd evacuated from a nearby research outpost. 3 dead at the outpost, she reported, professional despite the horror in her eyes. The scientists were, it was like something was extracted from them. Not physically, energetically, Shikamaru materialized from the shadows, his normally languid posture now tense. These weren't shinobi. The attack patterns were, he paused, uncharacteristically struggling for words. Non-linear. They weren't moving through space the way we do. Naruto nodded grimly. He had noticed the same thing. Their attackers seemed to bend the fabric of reality, stepping through spaces that weren't there a moment before. Where's Sai? Naruto asked, already fearing the answer. Creating a perimeter, Shikamaru replied. He's still tracking one of them. The one that, he stopped, glancing uncomfortably at Naruto. The one that recognized me, Naruto finished. The memory sent a chill through him that had nothing to do with the evening air. The attacker had been nothing like the others, taller, emanating an authority that made the air heavy. While the others had fought with mechanical precision, this one had moved with purpose directly toward Naruto. And then, most disturbing of all, it had spoken. Convergence child, it had said, voice resin. Aiding on multiple frequencies simultaneously. Trinity abomination. The balance rejects your existence. Before Naruto could respond, the being had reached out with a hand that shifted between solid matter and translucent energy. Touching Naruto's chest directly over his heart. Pain had exploded through him. Not physical pain, but something deeper, as if 3 separate parts of his essence were being forcibly torn apart. Then something unexpected happened. Energy had erupted from Naruto's body, not the familiar red chakra of the 9 tails, but 3 distinct powers, crimson lightning that crackled with malevolent purpose. Prismatic scales that materialized briefly across his skin, and luminous silver light that flared from his eyes. The being had withdrawn, its featureless face somehow registering surprise. Tiamat's spawn indeed, it had hissed. Gabriel's mercy, Lucifer's ambition, unexpected. The names had meant nothing to Naruto, but they clearly meant something to the entity. It had retreated, vanishing into a rift that sealed itself behind it. Now, hours later, the implications of those words still eluded him, but the power that had manifested lingered beneath his skin. Icon electrical current seeking ground. We need to report back, Shikamaru said, interrupting Naruto's thoughts. This is way beyond our mission parameters. Agreed, Naruto said, rising to his feet. But first, a blur of movement caught his attention. Sai landed silently beside them, his pale face even more colorless than usual. The entity is gone, he reported. But it left this. He extended his hand, revealing a small crystalline object that pulsed with internal light. It was embedded in a tree, arranged with these. He unfolded a piece of paper on which he had copied strange symbols carved around the crystal's resting place. Sakura leaned forward. Some kind of message. Yes, Sai confirmed. But not for us. The symbols were arranged to catch your attention specifically, Naruto. Naruto frowned. How could you tell? Because your name is written here. Sai pointed to a series of intricate lines. Not in any language I recognize, but unmistakably your name. NTH. Essay. He indicated 3 interlocking symbols, appear to be titles or designations. Shikamaru's analytical mind was already working. So they knew exactly who you are, and left this for you to find. Troublesome. Naruto reached for the crystal, but Sakura caught his wrist. Wait, we don't know what it does. Whatever it is, Naruto said with grim determination, it's meant for me. And after what that thing said, he gently broke free of her grip and took the crystal. The moment his fingers closed around it, the world shifted. Colors inverted, sound muted, and for a breathless instant, Naruto felt himself existing in multiple places simultaneously. Images flashed through his mind. A vast chamber where a colossal dragon with scales like the midnight sky coiled around a pillar of pure energy. A garden of impossible beauty where a woman with 6 wings of brilliant light cradled an infant to her chest, tears falling from eyes that had witnessed the birth of stars. A throne room sea. Carved from obsidian where a crimson-haired man with power rolling off him in palpable waves studied a contract written in characters that burned the air. As suddenly as it began, the vision ended. Naruto gasped, dropping to one knee as the crystal in his palm crumbled to dust. Naruto. Sakura was beside him instantly, medical chakra already glowing around her hands. What happened? He shook his head, unable to articulate the vastness of what he'd experienced. I saw things, people, places that can't exist. What kind of genjutsu? Shikamaru began. Not genjutsu. Naruto cut him off. Something else. Something. He pressed his hand to his chest where a warmth was spreading outward from his heart. I need to speak with Tsunade. Immediately. The journey back to Konoha passed in tense silence. Naruto's mind raced, trying to contextualize the visions. The names the entity had spoken, Tiamat, Gabriel, Lucifer, echoed in his thoughts, carrying weight and significance he couldn't yet comprehend. Most disturbing was the bone-deep certainty that these were more than random images. They were memories, fragments of a history that belonged to him yet had been kept from him. The Yaj gates came into view as dawn broke, golden light spilling over the Hokage monument. Naruto's gaze lingered on the 4th Hokage's stone face. Minato Namikaze, the man he had been told was his father. But now, doubt crept in where certainty had once resided. You 3 file the preliminary report, Naruto instructed his team. I need to see the Hokage. Shikamaru gave him a searching look. This is about more than the mission. Isn't it? Naruto met his friend's perceptive gaze. I think so. I just don't know what more entails yet. Without waiting for a response, he channeled chakra to his feet and launched himself toward the Hokage tower. The familiar action felt subtly different, as if the energy flowing through him had changed its composition. Not dramatically, but enough that his body registered the difference. He landed on the windowsill of Tsunade's office with barely a sound. To his surprise, she was already at her desk despite the early hour, a cup of sake beside a towering stack of documents. More surprising was the lack of shock on her face when he appeared. You were expecting me, Naruto said. Not a question. Tsunade sighed, looking every bit her true age for a moment. I've been expecting this day for 19 years. She pressed a hidden switch beneath her desk, and the subtle hum of privacy seals activated around the room. Tell me what happened. Naruto recounted the mission, the strange attackers, and the entity's cryptic words. As he described the vision from the crystal, Tsunade's expression grew increasingly grim. When he finished, silence hung between them for several heartbeats. You knew, he finally said, the words falling like stones. Whatever this is about me, you knew. Tsunade nodded slowly. Not everything, but enough. She reached into a hidden compartment in her desk and withdrew a sealed scroll unlike any Naruto had seen before. Its parchment seemed to shift between various textures, sometimes appearing like reptilian hide, sometimes like luminous fabric, sometimes like dark velvet. This was entrusted to the 3rd Hokage by Jiraiya, she explained, with instructions that it be given to you when certain signs appeared. The manifestation of triple energy is one such sign. Triple energy. You mean the red lightning, the scales, and the light? Yes, markers of your true heritage. Tsunade pushed the scroll across the desk. I can't open this. None of us can. It's keyed to your specific signature. Naruto stared at the scroll, hesitation momentarily overwhelming curiosity. If Minato Namikaze isn't my father, then who am I? Tsunade's eyes softened with compassion. Minato raised you in the brief time he had. He loved you as his son. That part is true, but your origin is more complex. With a deep breath, Naruto reached for the scroll. The moment his fingers touched it, the three different materials comprising its surface reacted. The scaled portion shimmered with iridescence, the luminous section glowed with inner light. And the velvet darkened to absorb all light around it. Then, like a living thing responding to a familiar touch, the seal dissolved. As the scroll unfurled, three distinct scripts became visible, each in a different language. Surprisingly, Naruto found he could read them all, though he had never seen any of them before. I don't understand, he murmured. These words, I shouldn't know them, but I do. Read it, Tsunade urged. Out loud, if you can. Naruto began to read, his voice changing subtly with each section. The first, written in angular charact, that seemed carved from primordial stone. To the son of three realms, born of Tiamat, Chaos Karma Dragon and God of the Dimensional Gap. Your draconic heritage grants you dominion over space, time, and elemental forces beyond mortal comprehension. When the scales manifest, embrace them, they are your birthright and your armor against those who fear the convergence. The second section, writ, in flowing script that seemed to emit its own gentle radiance. To the blessed child of Gabriel, Archangel of Revelation and Messenger of the highest heaven. Your celestial essence carries the HT of creation and the power of divine judgment. When your eyes shine with inner light, remember that mercy is the greatest strength, a lesson your mother believed when she defied heaven's mandate to love across boundaries. The third section, inscribed in elegant characters that seemed to absorb the shadows around them. To the heir of Seerzex Lucifer, Devil King of the underworld and master of the power of destruction. Your infernal lineage grants you authority over contracts, illusions, and the fundamental forces of change. When crimson lightning answers your call, know that ambition tempered by compassion is the true path to power, the principle that guided your father when he chose love over convention. A final paragraph, written in a script that combined elements of all three languages. The convergence approaches. The barriers between Dragon Realm, High Heaven, and the underworld grow thin. Those who profit from separation will seek your destruction, for in you lies the potential to unite what has been sundered. Seek the Twilight Sanctuary where realms overlap. There, you will find the first key to awakening your complete heritage. The Dimensional Equilibrium Coalition will oppose you. They are the guardians of artificial boundaries and fear the change you represent. Trust those whose sight penetrates illusion. Blood calls to blood. Your journey begins with recognition. As the last word left his lips, the scroll transformed. The parchment dissolved into motes of light that swirled around Naruto's form before sinking into his skin. A momentary burning sensation spread across his back, between his shoulder blades, then faded to a pleasant warmth. What just happened? He asked, reaching awkwardly behind himself. Tsunade looked equally bewildered. I don't know, but I'd guess some kind of seal or mark has been placed on you. Not placed, Naruto corrected, somehow certain. Activated. It was already there. A knock at the door interrupted them. Tsunade deactivated the privacy seals with a gesture. Enter. Shizune appeared, looking flustered. Lady Tsunade, Hinata Hyuga is requesting an urgent meeting with you and Naruto. She says. Shizune hesitated, glancing uncertainly between them. She says she can see something no one else can, and it's about Naruto. Tsunade and Naruto exchanged meaningful looks. Trust those whose sight penetrates illusion, Naruto quoted softly. Send her in, Tsunade ordered. Moments later, Hinata entered, her normally pale complexion even more so. Upon seeing Naruto, she activated her Byakugan without prompting. Her sharp intake of breath confirmed what they had suspected. Naruto-kun, she whispered. Your chakra, it's not just changed, it's tripled, he suggested. She shook her head, moving closer with uncharacteristic boldness. Not exactly. It's still your chakra, but it's as if it's resonating on three different frequencies simultaneously. Her eyes, enhanced by the Byakugan, widened further. And there's a seal on your back that's redistributing the energy, harmonizing it. Can you describe exactly what you see? Tsunade pressed. Hinata nodded, eyes never leaving Naruto. 3 distinct energy signatures, each with its own color and feeling. A deep crimson energy that moves like lightning, seductive and powerful. A prismatic blue-green energy that shifts and flows like water but feels ancient and vast. And a silver-white energy that radiates outward like sunlight, pure and penetrating. She stepped even closer, her Byakugan focusing with an intensity Naruto had never witnessed before. But what's most strange is that my Byakugan shouldn't be able to perceive these distinctions. It's as if my eyes have evolved somehow. Just this morning, I woke up and everything looked different. I can see currents of energy I never could before, connections between people, residual signatures in objects. Tsunade frowned. Your dujutsu has spontaneously advanced. That's unprecedented. Not entirely, Naruto said quietly, remembering the scroll's words. Trust those whose sight penetrates illusion. Hinata finally deactivated her Byakugan, but remained unusually close to Naruto. Something's happening, isn't it? Something beyond Konoha, beyond the shinobi nations. Yes, Naruto confirmed, and apparently, I'm at the center of it. He turned to Tsunade. I need to find this Twilight Sanctuary. The scroll mentioned it as a place where realms overlap. Tsunade crossed her arms. Absolutely not. Not until we understand more about what we're dealing with. These entities that attacked you weren't using chakra. They're outside our frame of reference. We need intelligence, allies who understand these forces. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, Hinata interjected with uncharacteristic firmness, I don't think we have time for caution. What I'm seeing in Naruto's energy system is unstable. The 3 signatures are growing stronger but remain unbalanced. Without proper integration, they could tear him apart from within. Tsunade's eyes widened. You can see that level of detail. Hinata nodded. As I said, my Byakugan has changed. And there's something else. She hesitated, then continued. I've been having dreams. Of places that don't exist in our world. Of beings with 6 wings made of light. Of dragons that swim through emptiness between dimensions. Of palaces built from crystallized shadows. Naruto stared at her. Since when? The last 3 nights, she admitted. At first I thought they were just strange dreams, but after what I'm seeing now. She met his gaze directly. I think I'm somehow attuned to whatever is happening to you. Before anyone could respond, a pulse of energy emanated from Naruto, invisible to Nor. Malperception but clearly felt by all 3 shinobi. Hinata gasped, activating her Byakugan instinctively. Naruto, your draconic energy is surging. He felt it, a rising tide of power unlike anything he'd experienced before. Different even from the 9 Tails chakra. This energy felt ancient, primordial, connected to the very fabric of reality. Scales of iridescent blue-green briefly materially zed along his forearms before fading back into his skin. We need to move, Tsunade decided, rising from her desk. Whatever's happening, you can't be in the village if these powers start manifesting uncontrollably. Follow me. She led them through a hidden passage behind her office, down spiraling stairs that descended deep beneath the Hokage Tower. The air grew cool and damp, and the walls transitioned from worked stone to natural rock. Finally, they emerged into a vast cavern illuminated by phosphorescent crystals. The hidden archive, Tsunade explained. One of Konoha's most closely guarded secrets. If there's information about these realms or this Twilight Sanctuary, it would be here. The cavern contained thousands of scrolls, books, and artifacts, organized in a system that defied obvious logic. Tsunade moved with purpose toward a section where the items appeared oldest, their containers fashioned from materials not commonly seen in the shinobi world. The first Hokage collected accounts of phenomena beyond our understanding, she explained, carefully removing a weathered tome bound in what appeared to be sharkskin. He believed that chakra was just one expression of energy in a much larger cosmos. As Tsunade opened the book, another surge of power coursed through Naruto. This time, it was the crimson energy, his devil heritage, responding to something in the room. Without conscious direction, he found himself walking toward a display case containing what appeared to be a broken blade. The metal was black as night, with crimson runes etched along its surface. That's the dusk fragment, Tsunade said, following his gaze. Found by the second Hokage in the ruins of a temple predating the Warring States period. No one's been able to decipher the writing. Naruto approached the case, drawn by an inexplicable certainty. I can read it, he said softly. It's a contract blade, used to formalize pacts between devils and other entities. His hand moved toward the glass, crimson energy crackling between his fingers. It says, through this edge, bonds transcend death. What is freely given cannot be reclaimed. The moment his energized fingers touched the glass, it shattered, not outward, but inward, the fragments disappearing into nothingness. The broken blade rose from its display, hovering before Naruto. Don't touch it, Tsunade warned, but it was too late. As Naruto's hand closed around the hilt, the broken edge began to regenerate, forming a complete blade of midnight metal. Crimson energy coiled around the weapon, then sank into it, causing the runes to glow with malevolent beauty. Naruto-kun, your demonic energy has stabilized, Hinata reported, her Byakugan tracking the flow of power. It's as if the blade is regulating it somehow. Naruto studied the weapon with newfound understanding. This isn't from our world. It's from the underworld, a devil's contract blade that somehow ended up here. He turned to Tsunade. The scroll mentioned blood calling to blood. I think this is what it meant. Objects or places connected to my heritage will respond to me. Tsunade looked troubled. If that's true, then we need to proceed carefully. There's no telling what else might react to your presence, or how. Before she could elaborate, Hinata gave a small cry of alarm. Something's coming. I can see a distortion in the energy field of the cavern, like a tear opening. Quote, the air several meters away shimmered, then split open like fabric being cut by an invisible knife. Through the opening, a landscape unlike anything from our world became visible, a vista of floating islands suspended in a purple-hued void, connected by bridges of solid light. The dimensional gap, Naruto whispered, knowledge rising unbidden from somewhere deep within him. The space between realms. A figure emerged from the rift, a woman of impossible beauty, with features that seemed to shift between human and something decidedly not. Her hair flowed like liquid mercury, and her eyes held the depth of cosmic abysses. She wore armor that appeared to be fashioned from living scales, and power radiated from her impalpable waves. Son of Tiamat, she addressed Naruto, her voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. The awakening has begun sooner than anticipated. The coalition has accelerated their timetable. Tsunade stepped protectively in front of Naruto. Identify yourself and your purpose. The woman regarded Tsunade with ancient eyes. I am Vritra, sentinel of the outer boundaries and servant to Lady Tiamat. I come with warning and direction for the Trinity child. You know my mother, Naruto said, stepping forward. The dragon from my vision. Vritra inclined her head. Tiamat is the Chaos Karma Dragon, god of the dimensional gap. And one of your 3 progenitors. The others, Gabriel of the Seraphim and Sirzex of the Devil Kings, are equally extraordinary. Your existence was meant to remain hidden until your powers naturally matured. But the Dimensional Equilibrium Coalition has discovered you. What is this coalition? Tsunade demanded. Why did they attack my shinobi? They are the self-appointed guardians of cosmic separation. Vritra explained. Beings from various realms who believe that the boundaries between dimensions must remain absolute. The natural flow of energy between realms threatens their power bases, their religious dogmas, their very understanding of existence. Her gaze returned to Naruto. You, Trinity child, represent their greatest fear, the living embodiment of harmony between dragon, angel, and devil. In you, they see the potential end of their carefully maintained order. The energy extraction at the research outpost, Hinata realized. They were harvesting interdimensional energy. Vritra nodded, impressed. Your sight is remarkable for a human. Yes, they harvest the natural bleed-through of energy between realms to reinforce the barriers. But such barriers were never meant to be absolute. The cosmos seeks balance through controlled exchange. Naruto gripped the contract blade tighter. What do I need to do? The scroll mentioned a twilight sanctuary. The sanctuary exists at a nexus point where your world, the underworld, heaven, and the dragon realm come into alignment, Vritra confirmed. There, you can begin the process of stabilizing your triple nature. But the journey there will be dangerous. The coalition will sense your movement between dimensional boundaries. I'm not leaving Naruto to face this alone, Hinata declared, surprising everyone with her conviction. Vritra studied her with newfound interest. Your eyes, they're evolving beyond their original design. Interesting. The Hyuga bloodline has always had potential beyond what its bearers realized. She approached Hinata, who stood her ground despite the dragon woman's intimidating presence. You see the truth of energy. That makes you valuable, and a target. We're wasting time, Naruto interjected. If my powers are destabilizing, we need to reach this sanctuary. Tsunade Bachan, I need your permission to pursue this. Tsunade looked torn between her duty as Hokage and her concern for Naruto. This goes beyond Konoha's borders or interests. I can't officially sanction a mission into other dimensions. Then don't make it official, Naruto suggested. Consider me on extended leave for personal reasons. After a moment's consideration, Tsunade nodded. Very well, but you're not going alone. Hinata clearly has a role to play in this, and I want Shikamaru with you as well. His strategic mind will be valuable in navigating unknown territory. The shadow manipulator, Vritra mused. Yes, his abilities may prove useful against coalition forces. They fear what lurks in darkness. I'll inform him, Tsunade decided. Naruto, gather whatever supplies you think you'll need. You have 1 hour before departure. As Tsunade left to make arrangements, Naruto turned to Vritra. There's still so much I don't understand. Why was I raised here, in this world? Why didn't any of my parents come for me? Sadness flickered across Vritra's otherworldly features. That is a long and complex tale, Trinity child. The short answer is that they had no choice. Your creation was unprecedented, a being born of 3 cosmic powers. Such an event generated ripples through all realms, drawing immediate attention. To protect you, you were hidden in a realm considered insignificant by the greater powers, your true nature sealed until you could protect yourself. And now that seal is breaking, Hinata observed. Yes, the crystal catalyst you encountered was meant to trigger a gradual awakening, but the coalition's direct attack accelerated the process. Vritra gestured to the contract blade in Naruto's hand. That weapon is responding to your devil nature. Soon, objects connected to your dragon and angel heritage will likewise reveal themselves. Naruto glanced at Hinata, who had remained steadfast throughout these revelations. You don't seem shocked by any of this. A small, enigmatic smile curved her lips. Perhaps I should be, but it feels right, somehow. As if part of me has been waiting for something beyond the confines of our world. Her pale eyes met his. Besides, you've always been extraordinary, Naruto-kun. Learning at you're the son of cosmic beings somehow makes perfect sense. Her simple acceptance warmed something within him, providing an anchor amid the chaos of revelations. Before he could respond, however, another surge of energy, the prismatic draconic power, coursed through him, stronger than before. This time, iridescent scales manifested across his chest and arms, and his canine teeth elongated into points. Your dragon aspect seeks expression, Vritra observed. We must depart soon, before the changes become too obvious. The hour passed quickly. Shikamaru, after a surprisingly brief explanation, agreed to accompany them with his customary, troublesome, but determined attitude. Equipment was gathered, farewells were kept to a minimum to avoid raising questions, and soon the small group reconvened in the hidden archive. The dimensional gap is not for unprepared mortals, Vritra warned as she prepared to reopen the rift. I will extend my protection over you, but stay close. Stray too far, and the void will consume you. Cheerful, Shikamaru muttered. Vritra raised her hand, and the air split open once more, revealing the alien landscape beyond. Once we cross, there is no turning back until your journey is complete. The coalition will be watching for dimensional transitions. Naruto looked to his companions. Last chance to back out. Hinata stepped closer to him, her newly evolved Byakugan activated. I'm with you. Someone has to keep you from being too troublesome, Shikamaru added with a half smile. With a nod of determination, Naruto stepped toward the rift, the contract blade humming with anticipation in his grip. Just before crossing the threshold, he paused, struck by a sudden memory. Wait, he said, turning to Vritra. In my vision, I saw a woman with 6 wings holding an infant. Was that Gabriel? With me. Vritra's expression softened. Yes. The day she surrendered you to Minato Namikaze's care. The Archangel of Mercy wept stars as she placed you in the arms of the mortal who would raise you as his own. And the crimson-haired man on the obsidian throne. Seersex Lucifer, formerly of House Grimoire, who broke devil tradition to love across boundaries. He has watched over you from afar, though ancient laws prevented his direct intervention. And Tiamat, Naruto asked, completing the trinity. The Chaos Karma Dragon defied the laws of her kind to participate in your creation. She who never bowed to any power humbled herself for love. Of your 3 parents, she has paid the heaviest price for breaking cosmic law, but regrets nothing. Vritra's eyes gleamed with something like pride. You are their legacy, Trinity child. The impossible made manifest. With those words resonating in his mind, Naruto stepped through the rift into the dimensional gap. His companions close behind. The world of shinobi fell away, and reality itself seemed to shift and reform around them. Colors existed here that had no names in human language, and the very concept of direction became fluid and relative. Vritra guided them along a path that seemed to materialize beneath their feet, a bridge of solid energy connecting floating fragments of broken landscapes. These are echoes, she explained, gesturing to the islands suspended in the void. Remnants of worlds that died or fragments cast off during the formation of new dimensions. The gap preserves them, like memories that refuse to fade. As they traversed this impossible space, Naruto felt his awareness expanding. The draconic aspect of his heritage resonated with the gap itself, and he found himself instinctively understanding its currents and eddies. This place feels familiar, he murmured. The dimensional gap was Tiamat's domain for eons, Vritra explained. Her essence permeates it still. Your dragon blood recognizes its ancestral home. Hinata moved closer to Naruto, her evolved Byakugan taking in the swirling energies around them. It's beautiful, she whispered. Terrifying, but beautiful. How troublesome, Shikamaru commented, though his expression betrayed fascination rather than complaint. The strategic implications of interdimensional travel are overwhelming. Their path led them to a larger island floating in the void, upon which stood a structure unlike anything from their world, a temple crafted from what appeared to be solidified starlight. Its architecture following laws of geometry that shouldn't have been possible. The Twilight Sanctuary, Naruto asked. Vritra shook her head. A waypoint only. The true sanctuary lies at the convergence of all 3 realms of your heritage. This is merely a stepping stone, a place where you can rest and begin to understand the scope of what awaits you. As they approached the impossible temple, a figure emerged from its entrance, a man with features that seemed both ageless and ancient, dressed in robes that shifted between various states of matter. Ah, the Trinity child arrives at last, he called out, his voice carrying easily across the distance. I am Chironix, keeper of the outer temples and chronicler of convergences. You were expecting us? Shikamaru asked suspiciously. For several centuries now, Chironix replied with a smile that suggested he experienced time very differently than they did. Though I confess, I anticipated your arrival would be under less urgent circumstances. The coalition forced our hand, Vritra explained. Chironix's expression darkened. So I've heard. Their recent activities have grown increasingly desperate. They are the signs of natural convergence that have been manifesting across the realms. His gaze fixed on Naruto. And they fear you most of all, young one. The living bridge between 3 cosmic powers. I still don't understand why my existence threatens them so much, Naruto admitted as they followed Chironix into the temple. The interior defied conventional space. Corridors seemed to extend infinitely in impossible directions. Rooms existed inside other rooms, and windows looked out on vistas from entirely different dimensions. The coalition derives its power from separation, Chironix explained, leading them to a central chamber where a pool of silvery liquid reflected not their faces but distant realms. For millennia, they have maintained artificial boundaries between dimensions, vesting the resulting tension energy for their own purposes. He gestured to the pool, which shifted to show massive structures positioned at what appeared to be tiers in reality. These are their siphon engines. They strengthen dimensional barriers beyond their natural state, creating pressure points where energy can be extracted. Like damming a river to generate power, Shikamaru observed. Precisely. Chironix nodded approvingly. But like any dam, it creates imbalance. The natural flow between realms is necessary for cosmic health. Too much separation leads to stagnation, corruption, and eventually, collapse. And I somehow threaten this system. Naruto asked. You are the embodiment of harmony between three major cosmic powers, Chironix confirmed. Dragon, angel, devil, forces. Traditionally at odds with one another, coexist within you. Your very existence proves that separation is not the natural order. More importantly, as your powers mature, you will instinctively begin to weaken the artificial barriers, allowing realms to interact as they were meant to. Naruto absorbed this information, feeling the weight of implications he still didn't fully grasp. So what happens now? How do I control these powers before they tear me apart? Chironix approached a wall covered in intricate carvings. At his touch, the carvings rearranged themselves to form three distinct circles that then overlapped into a complex trinity knot. First, you must understand the nature of your heritage, he explained. Then, you must claim artifacts connected to each aspect, objects of power. That will help you channel and control the energies awakening within you. The carved wall shifted again, revealing three alcoves. The first contained what appeared to be a scale the size of Naruto's palm, iridescent and somehow fluid despite its solid appearance. The second held a feather that radiated gentle light. The third contained a small vial of what looked like liquid darkness. These are essence fragments, Chironix said. Not the artifacts themselves, but keys that will resonate with your heritage and guide you to what you seek. Another surge of energy coursed through Naruto, stronger than before. This time, all three aspects manifested simultaneously. Scales shimmered across his skin, his eyes glowed with inner light, and crimson lightning crackled around his form. His energies are becoming more unstable, Hinata reported, her Byakugan tracking the chaotic flow. The three signatures are fighting for dominance. Then we must act quickly, Chironix decided. Trinity child, take the essence fragments. Let them recognize you. Naruto approached the alcoves. As his hand hovered over the scale, it liquefied, flowing up his arm and sinking into his skin. The sensation was not painful but strange, like cool water flowing through his veins. The feather dissolved into particles of light that he instinctively inhaled, filling his lungs with warmth that spread throughout his body. The vial of darkness shattered of its own accord, its contents forming a shadow that briefly enveloped his heart before disappearing. For a moment, nothing happened. Then pain erupted thr. Ow, every fiber of his being as the three essences fought for dominance within him. Naruto, Hinata cried out, rushing to his side as he collapsed to his knees. Through a haze of agony, he heard Chironix's urgent voice. The essences must harmonize. Focus, Trinity child. Find the balance point where they can coexist. Easier said than done, Naruto thought grimly as his body became a battleground for cosmic forces. The draconic essence was wild and primal, seeking to consume the others. The angelic essence was rigid and judgmental, attempting to purify what it perceived as corruption. The demonic essence was seductive and ambitious, trying to subordinate its competitors. Just when it seemed the conflict would tear him apart, Naruto felt a cool hand on his forehead. Hinata had knelt beside him. Her Byakugan activated to its fullest extent. I can see it, she said with newfound authority. The flow patterns. They're not meant to fight, they're meant to cycle. Her fingers traced precise points on his chest, shoulders, and temples. Here, here, and here. The energies need channels, not barriers. Following her guidance, Naruto visualized pathways connecting the three powers, allowing them to flow into one another in a continuous circuit rather than fighting for the same space. Gradually, agonizingly, the energies began to align. The pain subsided, replaced by a humming resonance that felt right in a way he couldn't articulate. When he finally opened his eyes, he found everyone staring at him with varying degrees of awe. Even Vritra, the dragon sentinel, looked impressed. What? He asked, pushing himself to his feet. Your appearance, Shikamaru said simply, gesturing to a reflective surface nearby. Naruto approached it cautiously. The face that looked back at him was still recognizably his own, but with subtle yet profound changes. His normally blue eyes now contained flecks of silver and crimson that shifted like living things. His blonde hair was streaked with hints of midnight blue that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Most notably, intricate markings had appeared on his skin. Not quite scales, not quite tattoos, but something in between. He traced patterns of power across his visible flesh. The first integration, Chironix observed with satisfaction. Temporary, but significant. Your body is beginning to adapt to its true nature. Will I stay like this? Naruto asked, not entirely displeased with the changes but concerned about returning to Konoha looking so obviously different. Your appearance will fluctuate as you master each aspect of your heritage. Chironix explained. Eventually, you will gain full control over how much of your true nature you reveal. For now, these changes mark progress, not permanence. A sudden tremor shook the temple, causing dust to fall from structures that had likely stood undisturbed for millennia. They've found us, Vritra hissed, her form shifting slightly toward her draconic nature. Coalition hunters. Chironix moved swiftly to a control mechanism that defied conventional understanding. The essence fragments have resonated with your awakening powers. The hunters can track that energy signature. So what's the plan? Naruto asked, the contract blade materializing in his hand without conscious thought. We cannot fight them here, Chironix decided. This temple exists in a state of dimensional neutrality. Conflict would destabilize it, potentially causing catastrophic collapse. Then we move, Naruto said decisively. Where to? The fragments within you are already pulling toward their counterparts, Chironix explained. The draconic essence seems strongest at present. It seeks reunion with a major dragon artifact connected to your mother's lineage. I know where it leads, Vritra confirmed. The abyssal archives, where Tiamat stored objects of power too dangerous to leave unprotected. One such object would be the tidal heart, a crystallized fragment of Tiamat's own essence that she likely intended for her offspring. Another tremor, stronger this time, shook the temple. No time for debate, Shikamaru said, already analyzing escape routes. We need to move now. Chironix nodded gravely. I will remain to misdirect them. My position as keeper grants me certain immunities they dare not violate. He approached Naruto, placing a hand on his shoulder. Remember, Trinity child, balance is your strength. No single aspect of your heritage holds the answer. Only in harmony will you find your true power. With that cryptic advice, he gestured toward a previously unseen doorway that had materialized in the chamber wall. This will take you directly to the edge of the abyssal archives domain. From there, Vritra can guide you. What about you? Hinata asked with genuine concern. Chironix smiled enigmatically. I have witnessed countless cycles of cosmic evolution, young one. The coalition does not frighten me. His expression sobered. But beware, they will send their best hunters now that they've confirmed your awakening. Trust no one whose energy Hinata cannot verify with her sight. As they hurried toward the doorway, Naruto paused, looking back at Chironix. Thank you. We will meet again, Trinity child, the ancient keeper replied. When you have claimed all three aspects of your heritage, then, the true challenge begins. With those ominous words echoing in their minds, Naruto, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Vritra passed through the doorway into swirling dimensional currents. Behind them, the temple and Chironix va. Niched from sight as reality itself shifted around them. They emerged onto a floating archipelago of massive stone platforms suspended in a twilight void. Unlike the dimensional gap's chaotic energy, this place had a distinct feeling of ancient purpose, of power deliberately contained and organized. The outer boundary of the abyssal archives, Vritra confirmed, her form becoming more draconic in this environment. Scales now covered portions of her exposed skin, and her eyes had become distinctly reptilian. Here, Tiamat's influence is absolute. Even the coalition treads carefully in these waters. Waters? Shikamaru questioned, looking at the seemingly empty void below the stone platforms. As if in answer, massive shapes became visible in the depths, colossal serpentine forms that dwarfed anything from their world. Swimming through the void as naturally as fish through the sea. The void dragons, Vritra explained. Distant kin to Tiamat herself. They guard the approaches to the archives. Naruto felt the draconic essence within him responding to their presence, a sense of recognition, of kinship, that both exhilarated and terrified him. I can feel them, he murmured. They're aware of us. Of me. Vritra nodded. They sense Tiamat's blood in your veins. It is both protection and challenge. They will not harm you without provocation, but they will test your worthiness to claim dragon heritage. Wonderful, Shikamaru muttered. More troublesome tests. Hinata, who had been scanning their surroundings with her evolved Byakugan, suddenly stiffened. Movement. 3 o'clock, approaching fast. They turned to see a figure skimming across the void toward them, moving with impossible speed and grace. As it drew closer, they could make out a humanoid form clad in a armor that seemed to be crafted from solidified moonlight. Coalition Hunter, Vritra confirmed, her posture becoming defensive. High-ranking, judging by the armor. The hunter slowed as it approached, coming to a halt several meters away. Its helmet concealed any features, but its voice carried clearly, metallic and distorted, yet unmistakably authoritative. Vritra of the Boundary Sentinels, it addressed the dragon woman. You violate covenant law by guiding the abomination through restricted transit ways. I recognize no covenant that denies blood right, Vritra replied coldly. The trinity child seeks what is his by inheritance. The archives will judge his worthiness, not your artificial laws. The hunter's attention shifted to Naruto, helmet tilting slightly as if studying him. Interesting. The hybridization is more stable than our models predicted. The angel and devil aspects should have destroyed each other by now. Sorry to disappoint, Naruto replied, the contract blah. Humming with anticipation in his grip. Your existence is not disappointing, Trinity child, the hunter said, surprising them. Merely premature. The convergence of realms is inevitable, but saint occur according to the proper sequence. Your chaotic manifestation threatens to accelerate the process beyond safe parameters. This wasn't the fanatic Naruto had expected. The hunter spoke like a technician concerned with procedure rather than an zealot opposed to his existence. If convergence is inevitable, Shikamaru interjected, then why fight so hard against it? The hunter's helmet turned toward the shadow user. Uncontrolled convergence would result in dimensional collapse. Billions of lives across thousands of realms would be extinguished. We are not villains, Shadow Wielder. We are preservationists. Yet you would kill Naruto to maintain your version of preservation, Hinata said, stepping forward with uncharacteristic boldness. If necessary, the hunter acknowledged without hesitation. One life against billions is simple mathematics. Except your math is flawed, Naruto countered, pieces falling into place as he spoke. Chironix said the artificial barriers are creating pressure points. Not relieving them. You're not preventing collapse, you're causing it. The hunter was silent for a moment. The keeper's perspective is theoretical. Our models are based on millennia of practical application. Quote, your models are based on what benefits those in power, Vritra said dismissively. The coalition has grown too fond of the energy harvested from artificial separation. You serve masters who profit from division. Before the hunter could respond, one of the massive void dragons rose from the depths, positioning itself behind their group. Its size defied comprehension. A serpentine form that could have swallowed Konoha whole, with scales that reflected the very fabric of spacetime. Rather than attacking, it opened its enormous maw and released a sound that transcended conventional hearing, a harmonic resonance that Naruto felt in the core of his being. The draconic essence within him responded, surging to the surface. Scales manifested across his skin, and his perception shifted, allowing him to understand the dragon's communication. Child of Tiamat, it addressed him in concepts rather than words, the archives recognize your blood claim. Enter and seek your inheritance. We will hold the boundary against interlopers. The hunter took a step back, even its sophisticated armor insufficient protection against a primal void dragon's direct attention. This isn't over, Trinity child, the hunter warned. We will meet again, at the next threshold. With that, the armored figure retreated, seemingly aware that challenging a void Drago in its own domain would be suicidal even for a high-ranking coalition hunter. Naruto turned to his companions, surprised to find that his perception of them had changed as well. Through his temporarily draconic senses, he could see the flow of their life energies, the patterns of their thoughts, the connections between them. The void dragon has granted us passage, he explained, his voice carrying a subtle resonant quality. And protection, at least until we reach the archives themselves. Vritra bowed deeply toward the colossal creature. We are honored by your intervention, Ancient One. The dragon's massive eye, larger than a house, focused briefly on each of them before it submerged once more into the void depths. "We should move quickly," Vritra advised. "Its protection extends only to the archive boundaries. Once inside, you will face trials of worthiness." "More tests," Shikamaru sighed. "How troublesome." As they traversed the floating stone platforms toward a massive structure now visible in the distance, Hinata moved closer to Naruto. "Your energy has shifted again," she observed, her Byakugan active. "The draconic aspect is now dominant, but the others remain in balance. It's beautiful, actually. Like watching three rivers flow alongside each other without mixing, yet somehow remaining part of the same watershed." Her poetic description surprised him. "You see all that with your Byakugan?" She nodded, a hint of wonder in her expression. "My eyes have been changing since this morning. It's as if they're evolving to perceive dimensions of reality we're always there but invisible to us. I can see connections between people, between objects and the energies that created them, between places that should be separate but somehow touch." "Troublesome," Shikamaru commented, but his tone held genuine curiosity. "Is it possible your bloodline has its own connections to these other realms?" "More than possible," Vritra interjected. "Many of your world's dujutsu have origins beyond your dimension. The Byakugan in particular shows characteristics reminiscent of celestial perception abilities." This revelation added yet another layer to the already complex situation. If Hinata's bloodline had interdimensional connections, it might explain her natural attunement to Naruto's changing energies. They reached the edge of a vast chasm that separated them from the looming archive structure. No physical bridge was visible, yet Vritra stepped confidently into empty space, and remained standing on nothing. "The path exists for those with dragon sight," she explained. "Naruto should be able to perceive it now. The rest of you will need to follow closely." Indeed, Naruto could see it, a pathway of interwoven energy currents, solid enough to walk upon despite its transparent appearance. He extended his hands to Hinata and Shikamaru. "Stay connected," he instructed. "I'll guide us across." The crossing was disorienting for his companions, who could only see the endless void beneath their feet. For Naruto, however, it was exhilarating. His draconic senses revealed the complex patterns of energy that formed the bridge, the currents of dimensional force that flowed around them, and the watchful presence of the void dragons circling in the depths below. When they finally reached the archive entrance, a massive doorway carved from T appeared to be a single piece of obsidian. Naruto felt the draconic essence within him surge in recognition. Symbols etched into the obsidian surface glowed with inner light as he approached. "The trial gate," Vritra explained. "I can go no further. From here, only those of Tiamat's blood may enter without special dispensation." "You're not coming with us?" Hinata asked with concern. Vritra shook her head. "My role was to guide you to the threshold. The trials within are for Naruto alone." She turned to him. "Your companions may enter, but the challenges will target you specifically. Their safety is not guaranteed." Naruto looked to Hinata and Shikamaru. "I can't ask you to." "You're not asking," Hinata interrupted with gentle firmness. "We're coming. Troublesome as it is, she's right," Shikamaru added. "Besides, I'm curious about these archives. Knowledge transcending dimensions. Too interesting to pass up." With gratitude warming his chest, Naruto turned back to Vritra. Will we find you after we retrieve whatever's waiting for me in there?" "The title heart will know," she replied cryptically. "It is a fragment of Tiamat herself, with all the awareness that implies. When you claim it, it will guide your next steps." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Trust your instincts, Trinity child. The dragon blood in you knows more than your mind yet comprehends." With those parting words, Vritra stepped back. The massive obsidian doors began to open of their own accord, revealing a corridor that seemed to extend into infinite darkness. Naruto took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his heritage and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Then, with Hinata and Shikamaru at his sides, he stepped across the threshold into the abyssal archives, the first major step in his journey to understand the truth of his existence. Behind them, the obsidian doors closed with a sound like the heartbeat of a slumbering god. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Scales of Heritage. The mountain air bit with crystalline clarity, thin and sharp in Naruto's lungs as he climbed higher. 3 days had passed since they'd emerged from the abyssal archives, 3 days of ceaseless motion across landscapes that existed at the boundaries of conventional reality. The tidal heart, a crystalline object resembling a dragon's scale the size of his palm, pulsed against his chest where he carried it, growing warmer as they ascended. "We're getting closer," he announced, pausing to let Hinata and Shikamaru catch up. Neither complained, but the journey had pushed all their endurance to its limits. The mountains they traversed existed in multiple realms simultaneously, what Vritra had called a confluence zone, before departing on her own mysterious errand. The terrain shifted subtly as they traveled, sometimes appearing as familiar rock and vegetation, other times transforming into formations of crystallized energy or flows of solid color. "The ambient energy signatures are changing," Hinata observed. Her evolved Byakugan activated. No longer did the veins around her eyes bulge prominently when she used her dujutsu. Instead, her irises expanded slightly, taking on an opalescent hue. Uulati that reflected light in hypnotic patterns. "There's a concentration ahead, something powerful." Shikamaru surveyed their surroundings with tactical precision. "This approach leaves us exposed. Any hostiles would see us coming kilometers away." "They already know we're here," Naruto replied with certainty, the tidal heart's warmth conveying information he couldn't explain. "This entire mountain range is sentient in its own way. We're being evaluated." The heart had changed him. Not dramatically, but noticeably. The draconic essence within him had strengthened, bringing with it instant sensual knowledge and sensory capabilities beyond human limitations. He could taste electromagnetic currents on the air, feel the subtle gravitational differences as dimensions overlapped, sense the ancient memories embedded in the stones beneath their feet. "There," he said suddenly, pointing toward what appeared to be an ordinary cliff face. "That's where we need to go." Hinata focused her vision. "I see it now. The rock isn't solid. It's some kind of membrane between spaces." They approached cautiously. Up close, the cliff face shimmered faintly, like heat rising from sun-baked stone. Naruto reached out, feeling the tidal heart grow almost uncomfortably hot against his skin. His fingers touched the rock, and passed through as if it were nothing more than mist. "A dimensional threshold," he explained. Somehow knowing the term, Tiamat's dream message led us here for a reason. The dream had come the night after they'd claimed the tidal heart from the center of the abyssal archives. In it, Tiamat, not as a dragon but as a woman with eyes ancient as creation itself, had spoken to him, her voice resonating through his blood rather than his ears. "Seek the mountain that walks between worlds," she had instructed. "There, the first piece of your legacy awaits, guarded by one who bridges realms as you do. Trust your draconic senses, my son. They will not mislead you." Now, standing before the threshold, Naruto felt the truth of her words. "We need to cross together," he instructed, offering his hands to his companions. "The transition can be disorienting. More troublesome dimensional travel," Shikamaru muttered, but took the offered hand without hesitation. "I can see strange currents on the other side," Hinata noted, her other hand clasping Naruto's firmly. "Like rivers of light flowing upward." "Ready?" Naruto asked. At their nods, he stepped forward, pulling them through the membrane between worlds. The transition felt like diving through honey, a moment of resistance. Then sudden release as they emerged on the other side. What awaited them stole the breath from their lungs. They stood on a narrow path carved into a mountain that defied comprehension. Its scale was impossible, extending so high that its peak vanished into swirling clouds of energy rather than air. Most striking were the massive, gnarled roots that emerged from the mountainside only to curve upward, defying gravity to reach toward a sun that shone with prismatic light rather than simple yellow-white. "The inverse world tree," Naruto whispered, the knowledge rising unbidden from his draconic essence. "One of the anchors that connects the dragon realm to other dimensions." The path before them wound upward, occasionally passing through short tunnels where roots had grown across the mountainside. The air here tasted of ozone and something sweeter, like metal mixed with wild honey. "The energy patterns are incredible," Hinata breathed, her Byakugan taking in the flows of power that ran through the mountain like blood through veins. "It's like the entire mountain is alive." "It is, in a way," Naruto confirmed, feeling the slow, patient consciousness that permeated their surroundings. Dragon realm features often possess a form of awareness. This mountain has existed since before time was measured. It remembers the formation of dimensions. Shikamaru gave him a sidelong glance. You're speaking differently. More formal. Naruto blinked, realizing his friend was right. The draconic essence is affecting more than just my perception. Knowledge, speech patterns, instincts, they're all shifting. He shook his head. Let's keep moving. I feel like we're being watched. They hadn't gone more than 100 meters when a sound like distant thunder rolled across the mountainside. Naruto tensed, recognizing it not as weather but as a warning. Something's coming, he said quietly. Something big. The ground beneath their feet trembled. Around a bend in the path ahead, a procession appeared, beings that blended humanoid and reptilian features in harmonious rather than monstrous ways. Their leader, a tall figure with copper-hued scales and eyes like molten gold, carried a staff carved from what appeared to be petrified lightning. Halt, the leader commanded, voice resonating with harmonic undertones. You stand upon sacred ground, boundary crossers. Identify yourselves and your purpose. Quote, Naruto stepped forward, the tidal heart pulsing in time with his heartbeat. I am Naruto Uzumaki, son of Tiamat. He gestured to his companions. These are my trusted allies. Hinata Hyuga and Shikamaru Nara. The leader's slitted pupils narrowed. Many have claimed kinship with the Great Ones. Prove your lineage, boundary crosser. Without conscious thought, Naruto reached into his shirt and withdrew the tidal heart. It glowed brilliantly in his palm, casting prismatic light across the mountainside. The dragon people murmured among themselves, their language incomprehensible yet somehow familiar to Naruto's ears. The heart of the abyss, the leader acknowledged, bowing his head slightly. Not given lightly, nor claimed without worthiness. He studied Naruto with new interest. I am Azumar, sentinel of the inverse path and guardian of the lower threshold. Why do you seek the mountain that walks between worlds, son of Tiamat? I seek understanding of my heritage, Naruto replied, feeling the formal words flow naturally. And that which was left for me here, according to Tiamat's dream message. Azumar's expression remained unreadable. Dream messages are sacred communications, not to be mentioned casually. What proof have you of this claim? Before Naruto could respond, a disturbance rippled through the dragon people's formation. They parted to reveal a newcomer approaching from behind, a woman with the bearing of royalty and eyes sharp as winter stars. Her flowing robes were patterned with 9-tailed foxes stitched in golden thread. And her black hair was adorned with ornaments that chimed softly as she moved. Most striking were the 9 fox tails that flowed behind her, white-tipped and swaying with hypnotic grace. I will vouch for his claim, Azumar, she announced, her voice melodic yet authoritative. The boundary disturbances match the prophecy patterns. This is indeed Tiamat's offspring. Azumar inclined his head respectfully. Lady Yasaka, your presence honors us, yet protocol demands verification, even with your esteemed voucher. Of course, she acknowledged with practiced diplomacy. Her gaze shifted to Naruto, assessing him with eyes that held centuries of wisdom. You're younger than I expected. Naruto felt a strange connection to this woman, not romantic, but a resonance between their energies that suggested some form of kinship. You knew I would come. I knew someone would come, she corrected. The signs have been unmistakable for those with eyes to see. The coalition's movements, the thinning of dimensional boundaries, the awakening of dormant ley lines. She gestured to the mountain around them. This place has been restless for months, shifting between realms more frequently than it has in millennia. Azumar raised his staff, which crackled with contained energy. The protocols remain, Lady Yasaka. The Trinity child must be tested before proceeding to the inner threshold. Trinity child, Shikamaru inquired, speaking for the first time since the encounter began. Yasaka's eyes flickered to him. An ancient term from dragon prophecies. One born of 3 cosmic lineages, whose existence bridges separated realms. Her tails swayed thoughtfully, though the prophecies never specified which 3 lineages would combine. Dragon, angel, and devil, Naruto stated simply. The assembled dragon people hissed in collective surprise. Even Azumar's composed demeanor cracked slightly. That particular trinity has never successfully merged, he said, voice low with implications. The energies are fundamentally opposed. Yet here he stands, Yasaka countered, a hint of satisfaction in her tone. Living proof that your fundamental oppositions are perhaps more flexible than dragon lore suggests. Tension crackled between them, suggesting a longer history of ideological disagreements. Naruto decided to intervene before it escalated. I'm prepared for whatever test is required, he announced. My companions as well, if necessary. Azumar considered this, then nodded once. The test is for you alone, Trinity child. It will evaluate your worthiness to claim dragon heritage. He struck his staff against the ground, creating a sound that reverberated through the mountain's core. Follow the resonance path to the testing grounds. Lady Yasaka may accompany you as witness. Your mortal companions must remain here. Naruto glanced at Hinata and Shikamaru, reluctant to leave them behind. We'll be fine, Hinata assured him, though concern shadowed her eyes. This is your journey, troublesome, but necessary, Shikamaru added with a shrug. We'll keep watch from here. One of the dragon people stepped forward, a female with silver-blue scales and a gentler demeanor than the others. I will ensure their comfort and safety, Trinity child. No harm will come to them under Niriel's watch. With that assurance, Naruto nodded to Azumar. Lead on. He resonance path proved to be aptly named. As they ascended, following a route that occasionally vanished only to reappear several meters away, the mountain itself seemed to sing, deep, subsonic vibra. Tions that Naruto felt in his bones rather than heard with his ears. Yasaka walked beside him, her steps soundless despite the uneven terrain. You've come at a precarious time, she said after they'd left the others far behind. The coalition has been systematically eliminating dimensional anomalies for the past year. Anything or anyone that might weaken the barriers between realms. Like me, Naruto surmised. Precisely. Your very existence threatens their control. She glanced at him sideways. Though I suspect that's not news to you. I'm still piecing it together, he admitted. Everything's happened so fast. A week ago, I was just a shinobi from Konoha with unusual chakra. Now I'm some prophesied, Trinity child, with 3 different cosmic parents. Yasaka's lips curved slightly. And how does that make you feel? The question caught him off guard with its simplicity. Overwhelmed, confused, angry that it was kept from me for so long. He paused, considering deeper truths. But also, like things finally make sense. I've always felt different, like I was missing some crucial piece of myself. Now I know why. She nodded as if his answer confirmed something. That's why I believe you're genuine. False claimants to prophecy typically revel in their supposed importance. They don't acknowledge the confusion and pain that comes with destiny. Their path widened, opening onto a plateau that shouldn't have been possible on the mountain's steep face. At its center stood a perfect circle of obsidian pillars, each carved with symbols that shifted and changed as Naruto watched. Beyond the circle, the mountain fell away sharply, offering a vista of impossible beauty, floating islands suspended in a sea of energy currents, massive serpentine forms gliding between them. Structures that defied conventional architecture rising from crystalline foundations. The Dragon Realm, Yasaka confirmed, noting his awe. Or rather, a glimpse of it. This mountain exists at an INTER section point where multiple dimensions touch. Azumar stepped into the circle of pillars, his staff striking the ground 3 times. With each impact, the obsidian pillars glowed brighter, until they formed a cylinder of light stretching skyward. The trial of resonance begins, he intoned formally. Step into the circle, Trinity child, and face the echoes of your lineage. Naruto approached the circle's edge, feeling the energy radiating from it like heat from a furnace. The tidal heart against his chest pulsed faster, almost urgently. What exactly am I facing? He asked, a reasonable question that made Azumar's expression tighten with disapproval. That's part of the test, Yasaka explained more diplomatically. Dragon trials are designed to evaluate instinct as much as ability. Foreknowledge would defeat the purpose. With a deep breath, Naruto stepped across the threshold into the circle of light. Immediately, the world around him vanished, replaced by a void filled with swirling mists. The ground beneath his feet felt solid enough, but visibility extended only a few meters in any direction. Welcome, child of my blood, a voice echoed through the mist, female, powerful, ancient beyond reckoning. I have waited long for this moment. The mists parted to reveal a woman of impossible beauty and terrible power. She appeared mostly human, save for the subtle scales. that shimmered across her exposed skin and the eyes that held galaxies in their depths. Her hair flowed around her like living water, constantly changing colors, midnight blue one moment, deep purple the next. Then shifting to colors Naruto had no names for. Mother, he whispered, the recognition instinctual rather than logical. Tiamat smiled, an expression both warming and terrifying. An aspect of me, at least. The trial draws upon your blood connection to create this interaction. She approached, her movements so graceful they seemed to bend space itself. You have questions. Many questions. Why did you abandon me? The words burst forth before he could temper them, raw with the pain of a lifetime without parents. If she was offended by his directness, she didn't show it. I did not abandon you, my son. I protected you the only way possible. Her expression darkened. The moment of your conception sent shockwaves through all realms. Such a union, dragon, angel, devil, had never successfully occurred. The power convergence could not be hidden. She gestured, and the mists formed images, 3 figures standing in a place between dimensions. Tiamat herself, in her current form. A radiant woman with 6 wings of golden light, and a man with crimson hair and power rolling off him in palpable waves. Gabriel, Searsex, and I broke ancient taboos to create you, she continued. Not out of recklessness, but necessity. The artificial barriers between realms have been strengthening for millennia, approaching a critical threshold where natural cosmic flow would cease entirely. The resulting stagnation would eventually destroy all connected dimensions. The images shifted, showing vast machines harvesting energy from tears in reality. The coalition built their power upon this separation, Tiamat explained. Their leaders spread dogma about the dangers of realm convergence while secretly harvesting the tension energy created by forced division. We 3, representatives of the most powerful separated realms, discovered their deception independently. When we came together to compare knowledge, we realized more than alliance was needed. You needed someone who could exist in all realms simultaneously. Naruto surmised. A bridge, yes, but such a being could not be created by conventional means. It required a true union of our essences, not just an alliance, but a merging. Her eyes held ancient sorrow. We knew the risks. The moment you were conceived, your energy signature would draw immediate attention. So we devised a contingency. The mists showed a new image, a younger Minato Namikaze receiving a swaddled infant from Gabriel's hands. We chose your human world for its uniqueness, a dimension where energy manipulation had evolved along different lines than any other known realm. Chakra is not divine, demonic, or draconic, but something entirely different. We hoped it would mask your developing powers until you reached maturity. Naruto processed this information, emotions churning. So Minato Namikaze wasn't my father, but he raised you as his son for the brief time he had, Tiamat confirmed. The Nine Tails attack was unexpected, or perhaps not entirely. The coalition has agents everywhere. They may have influenced events to eliminate your protector. 100 questions competed for priority, but Naruto forced himself to focus on immediate concerns. The scroll said I need to find artifacts connected to each aspect of my heritage. The tidal heart was the first. What's next? Tiamat's expression became enigmatic. That is part of your trial to discover. But first, you must prove worthy of the draconic powers awakening within you. She gestured, and the mists dissipated completely, revealing that they stood in what appeared to be the same circular platform. But now suspended in empty space. Face the echo trial, my son. Show me the dragon within. Without warning, she transformed, her human appearance giving way to her true form. The dragon that now hovered before him dwarfed anything Naruto had ever seen or imagined. Her scales shimmered with colors beyond the visible spectrum, her wings could have embraced mountains. And her eyes held the wisdom and ferocity of one who had witnessed the birth and death of universes. When she spoke, her voice shook the very fabric of reality. Dragon kind are not merely creatures of power, but embodiments of cosmic principle. Show me you understand what principle flows through your veins. With that cryptic instruction, she exhaled, not fire, but a torrent of pure dim dimensional energy that cascaded toward Naruto like a tidal wave of creation itself. Instinct took over. The draconic essence within him surged to the surface, transforming his perception. Time seemed slow as he analyzed the oncoming energy, not as a threat to be avoided, but as a pattern to be understood. Within the chaotic flow, he perceived underlying currents, rhythms, frequencies that resonate with something deep within his own being. Instead of dodging or defending, he opened himself to the energy, matching his internal frequency to its flow. Scales manifested across his skin, iridescent and shifting like Tiamat's own. The energy washed over and through him, neither harming nor overwhelming him but instead merging with his own draconic power, amplifying it. Understanding dawned as the energy cycled through him. Change, he said with sudden clarity. Dragons embody the principle of transformation, the eternal cycle of destruction and renewal that drives evolution itself. Tiamat's massive form radiated approval. Yes, unlike angels with their rigid order or devils with their ambitious chaos, dragons understand that true power lies in adaptation, in the constant flow between states. Her form began to shrink, returning to her humanoid appearance. You have passed the first test. Now for the second. The space around them shifted again, transforming into a vast library where books, scrolls, and artifacts stretched endlessly in all directions. Some texts were clearly ancient, bound in materials Naruto couldn't identify. Others appeared to be composed of pure energy, their contents flickering and changing as he watched. Dragon knowledge spans all dimensions and epochs, Tiamat explained, gesturing to the collection. But knowledge without context is meaningless. Show me you understand the responsibility that comes with cosmic awareness. Before Naruto could respond, images began to form in the air around them, visions of possible futures. In one, he saw hymns. Elf leading armies of hybrid beings against coalition forces, dimensional barriers collapsing in their wake, countless worlds suffering the consequences of sudden convergence. In another, he stood alone against the coalition, sacrificing himself to maintain separation but surrendering the chance for natural balance. Dozens of potential timelines played out simultaneously, each stemming from choices he had yet to make. The complexity was overwhelming, threatening to fragment his consciousness as he tried to track each possibility. Then he remembered Chironix's words, "Balance is your strength." Instead of trying to analyze each timeline individually, Naruto stepped back mentally, seeking patterns across all possibilities. Gradually, he discerned that outcomes fell along a spectrum, from catastrophic destruction caused by forced convergence to equally catastrophic stagnation from continued separation. There is no single correct path, he realized aloud. The responsibility isn't to choose the perfect future, but to navigate with awareness of consequences, adapting as circumstances change. He looked directly at Tiamat. Like a dragon, she smiled, genuine pride warming her ancient eyes. Precisely. The future is not written, but grown through countless interactions and choices. Those who claim to know the only righteous path are usually the most dangerous. She approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. One final test remains. The library vanished, replaced by a perfect recreation of Konoha, the village as Naruto had always known it. People he recognized walked the streets, going about their daily lives. Everything seemed normal, except, "This isn't real," he said, immediately recognizing the illusion despite its flawlessness. "No," Tiamat agreed, "but it could be. You could return to this life. Naruto, I could suppress your awakening powers, seal away the knowledge you've gained. You could live as you always have, a respected shinobi with unusual chakra but nothing more." She gestured, and the scene shifted to show him as Hokage, the village prosperous under his leadership. This future awaits if you choose simplicity over complexity. The temptation pulled at him more strongly than he'd expected. The weight of cosmic responsibility, of being the focal point for dimensional conflicts beyond his full comprehension, it was crushing when compared to his straightforward path he'd once imagined for himself. What would happen to the dimensional balance? He asked, already suspecting the answer. Eventually, the barriers would solidify beyond recovery. Realms would become permanently isolated, cosmic energy would stagnate, and over centuries or millennia, all connected dimensions would slowly decay. Tiamat's voice held no judgment, merely stating facts. But not in your lifetime. You could have peace, purpose, even happiness. Naruto watched the illusory villagers, friends, mentors, people who had shaped his identity for 19 years. And he thought of Hinata and Shikamaru waiting for him on the mountainside, of Yusaka who had vouched for him despite having just met him, of Vritra and Chironix who had guided and supported him on this new path. No, he said finally, with both regret and resolution. I've never run from responsibility before. I won't start now, even if the scale has changed. He turned to face Tiamat directly. I choose the harder path. Not because of prophecy or destiny, but because it's right. The illusion of Konoha dissolved into motes of light that swirled around them like fireflies. Tiamat's expression was solemn but satisfied. The third test is passed, she declared. Not by power or knowledge, but by character. You are truly my son. She raised her hand, and the swirling lights coalesced into a small object that floated between them, an orb that seemed to contain moving galaxies within its transparent surface. This is the Nexus Core, the second artifact meant for you. While the tidal heart connects you to your draconic essence, the core connects you to the principle of transformation itself. Naruto reached out, and the orb settled into his palm. Unlike the tidal heart's warmth, the Nexus Core felt cool and strangely heavy for its size, as if it contained mass beyond its physical dimensions. How do I use it? He asked, studying the swirling patterns within. It responds to intent and necessity, Tiamat explained. When transformation is required, of yourself, your surroundings, or dimensional boundaries, the core will provide the means. But beware using it without clear purpose. Unfocused transformation energy can have unpredictable results. As he absorbed this warning, the trial space around them began to waver, the edges dissolving back into mist. Our time grows short, Tiamat said, her form becoming slightly translucent. The trial draws on your energy to maintain this connection. I have one final gift before you return. She placed her hands on either side of his face. Her touch cool and electric. Knowledge. Information flooded Naruto's mind. Not as overwhelming data but as structured understanding that settled into his consciousness like pieces finding their proper places in a puzzle. Languages of various dragon clans, historical conflicts between cosmic powers, navigation techniques for interdimensional travel, recognition patterns for identifying beings from different realms, all flowed into him in an ordered stream. When it finished, he swayed slightly, adjusting to the expanded awareness. Thank you, he said simply, though the words felt inadequate. You will need every advantage in the days ahead, Tiamat replied. Her expression grew troubled. The coalition moves more aggressively than we anticipated. They have activated the Harmonic suppression network earlier than predicted. What does that mean? It means dimensional boundaries are being artificially reinforced to unprecedented levels. Natural convergence points are being sealed. Beings who naturally cross between realms are being hunted and neutralized. Her eyes met his with urgent intensity. It also means your time to master all three aspects of your heritage is limited. Once the network reaches full power, movement between dimensions will become nearly impossible. How long do I have? Weeks, perhaps a month. Her form grew fainter. Seek the second artifact of your angelic heritage next. Gabriel left her token in the care of one who walks the boundary between human and divine. She began to fade further. Remember, my son, transformation is not merely external. Your greatest power lies in your ability to evolve beyond the limitations of any single heritage. With those final words, she vanished completely. The mist swirled one last time, then dissipated to reveal the obsidian circle on the mountain plateau. Naruto stood at its center, the Nexus Core in one hand, the tidal heart pulsing against his chest. Azumar and Yusaka waited outside the circle, their expressions revealing nothing of what they might have witnessed. Beyond them, the vista of the dragon realm remained visible, though somehow more distant than before. The trial is complete, Azumar announced, striking his staff against the ground. The obsidian pillars ceased glowing, returning to their dormant state. You have been recognized by blood and worthiness, Trinity child. Naruto stepped out of the circle, feeling subtly but fundamentally changed. The draconic essence within him had integrated more fully with his being, no longer a separate power but an intrinsic aspect of himself. What did you see? Yusaka asked quietly as Azumar performed some kind of ritual to close the trial circle. My mother, Naruto replied simply. And possibilities. She studied him with those sharp, ancient eyes. You've changed. Your energy signature is more coherent. I understand more now, about who I am, who I'm meant to become. He held up the Nexus Core, Which cog? HT the prismatic sunlight and refracted it in impossible patterns. And I have this. Yasaka's eyes widened. The Nexus Core. There are legends about that artifact among yokai as well. It's said to H. Avenue been used in the creation of the first boundary crossers. Boundary crossers like you, Naruto guessed, remembering how she had been able to access this dimensional intersection point. A slight smile curved her lips. Yes, yokai exist in the spaces between defined realms. Neither fully of your human world nor entirely separate from it. Her 9 tails swayed thoughtfully. Which is why the coalition has been systematically eliminating us for generations. This information added new context to her earlier voucher for him. That's why you helped me. You see the coalition as a common enemy. Initially, yes, she acknowledged without pretense, but having witnessed your trial, even from outside, I believe there's more at stake than mere survival politics. She glanced at the vista of the dragon realm. Her expression momentarily vulnerable. Some of us remember when boundaries were more permeable, when knowledge and beings flowed more freely between realms. The world was more dangerous then, but also more vital. Azumar approached, his ritual complete. The mountain recognizes you now, Trinity child. You may return whenever you wish. The path will open for your blood. Thank you for your guidance, Naruto said formally, inclining his head with respect. I did not guide. I tested, Azumar corrected, though without hostility. Guidance comes from those who walk beside you, not those who stand in judgment. His gaze shifted to Yasaka. Speaking of which, the 9-tailed lady's territory faces imminent threat. Coalition forces gather at its borders as we speak. Alarm flashed across Yasaka's composed features. My barrier should have alerted me to any incursion. They're using new technology, Azumar explained grimly. Harmonic disruptors that create dimensional blind spots. Your sentinels can't perceive them until they've already breached your territory. Yasaka's tails bristled with suppressed emotion. I must return immediately. My people, we'll help, Naruto interrupted. The decision instant and unquestionable. The coalition is my enemy too, and you vouched for me when you didn't have to. She assessed him with rapid calculation. The risk is substantial. My territory exists in a pocket dimension connected to your human world. If it falls, thousands of yokai who can't survive in conventional reality will perish. All the more reason to defend it, Naruto insisted. Besides, I need to test these new abilities in actual combat. Azumar watched this exchange with unreadable eyes. The mountain has delivered its message, recognized your claim, and provided the artifact intended for you. My duty is fulfilled. He struck his staff against the ground one final time. May your transformations be purposeful, Trinity child. With that formal farewell, he and his dragon people began to descend the path, leaving Naruto and Yasaka alone on the plateau. We should collect your companions and depart immediately, she said, her diplomatic polish giving way to urgent authority. If the coalition is truly using harmonic disruptors, every moment counts. They descended quickly, finding Hinata and Shikamaru engaged in conversation with Nairiel, the silver-scaled dragon woman who had been assigned to watch over them. All three looked up as Naruto and Yasaka approached. Your energy has changed again, Hinata observed immediately, her evolved Byakugan activating briefly. More integrated, and you have a new object of power. Naruto quickly explained the situation, including Yasaka's territory under threat and their commitment to help defend it. Troublesome. Shikamaru sighed, though he was already analyzing potential strategies. What kind of forces does this coalition typically deploy? Varied, Yasaka replied. They recruit T from all realms, specialists whose abilities counter specific dimensional phenomena. Against yokai territory, they'll likely send void stalkers and harmony weavers, beings that can disrupt the natural energy patterns yokai depend upon. Nairiel, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. Trinity child, before you depart, I have something for you. She reached into a pouch at her waist and drew a small scale that shimmered with inner light. This is from the first clutch of Tiamat herself. It may serve as a focus for your draconic abilities when you're far from dragon-aligned realms. Naruto accepted the gift with surprise. Thank you. But why? Some of us believe the prophecies have been misinterpreted, she explained softly. That convergence is necessary for cosmic health, not a threat to be prevented. Her eyes, More human-like than Azumar's, held compassion. Be careful, Trinity child. The coalition's power is vast, and their influence extends into places you might not expect. With that cryptic warning, she bowed slightly and departed, following the path Azumar had taken. We need to move quickly, Yusaka urged. I can create a direct passage to my territory from here, but it will be detectable to coalition sensors. We'll likely face opposition the moment we arrive. Good, Naruto said with grim determination, the Nexus core pulsing softly in his pocket. I am ready to show them exactly what a Trinity child can do. Yusaka nodded, then closed her eyes in concentration. Her 9 tails spread in a fan behind her, each tip beginning to glow with foxfire. The air before them shimmered, then split open to reveal a garden of unearthly beauty, trees with silver leaves, flowers that emitted soft music instead of fragrance, and stone pathways that glowed with inner light. Kyoto, she explained, as it exists in the yokai dimension. My seat of power and sanctuary for those who cannot survive in the human world. Even through the portal, Naruto could say something wrong, a discordant note in what should have been harmonious energy. Hinata confirmed his perception. There's interference in the energy patterns, she reported, her Byakugan active. Like static disrupting a clear signal. The disruptors, Yusaka confirmed grimly. They've already begun their attack. She stepped toward the portal, then paused, looking back at Naruto and his companions. Once we cross, retreat may be difficult. The coalition will focus all their resources on capturing or eliminating you once they detect your presence. We understand the risks, Naruto assured her. The contract blade materialized in his hand, responding to his resolve. Lead the way. They stepped through the portal into Yusaka's realm, the transition smoother than previous dimensional crossings thanks to her direct guidance. The garden around them was even more beautiful up close, but signs of distress were immediately apparent, wilting areas where plants lost their vitality, section S of pathway where the inner light flickered erratically. The disruptors target the fundamental energy flows that sustain this pocket dimension, Yusaka explained, moving quickly along a path that led toward an elegant palace in the distance. Without intervention, the entire realm will destabilize within hours. They hadn't gone far when the attack came, sudden and coordinated. Figures in armor, similar to the coalition hunter they'd encountered before, materialized from distortions in the air around them. Unlike the previous hunter, these wore lighter armor optimized for speed rather than protection. Void Stalkers, Yusaka identified, her tails fanning out defensively. They move through dimensional weak points. Don't let them touch you, their gauntlets can disrupt your personal energy field. The stalkers moved with unnatural speed, circling their group in coordinated patterns. Naruto counted 8 of them, each armed with short batons that hummed with suppression energy. Shikamaru, defense, Naruto called out. Hinata, identify weak points in their armor. All engage directly. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered, but his shadow immediately stretched out, forming a perimeter around their group that would force the stalkers to jump over or risk entanglement. Hinata activated her evolved Byakugan, studying the attackers with analytical precision. Junction points at neck, inner elbows, and knees, she reported. The armor draws power from a central core at the base of the spine. Yusaka moved to Naruto's side, foxfire gathering around her hands. My people are evacuating to the inner sanctum. We need to disable the disruptors to stabilize the realm. Where are they? Naruto asked, tracking the stalkers' movements as they tested Shikamaru's shadow perimeter. 3 locations, she replied. North, east, and west boundaries of my territory, each guarded by a specialized team. One of the stalkers finally made its move, leaping high over Shikamaru's shadow to descend directly toward Naruto. Time seemed to slow as his draconic senses engaged fully. He could see the minute vibrations in the air created by the stalker's dimensional manipulation, Kodantic. I paid its landing point with perfect accuracy. The Nexus core pulsed in his pocket, responding to his need for transformation. Acting on instinct, he drew upon its power, channeling it through his draconic essence. Scales materialized along his arms, not just as armor but as conduits for energy manipulation. As the stalker descended, Naruto executed a precise strike, not at the attacker's body, but at the dimensional wake it created during movement. The result was spectacular. The stalker's trajectory suddenly reversed, its own momentum turned against it as the dimensional pathway it had been using collapsed. It slammed into one of its companions with bone-crushing force, both tumbling across the garden in a tangle of limbs and disrupted energy. "How did you?" Yusaka began, but was interrupted as 3 more stalkers attacked simultaneously. Naruto had no time to explain the instinctual knowledge that had guided his counter. The draconic essence within him was fully awakened now, TRANS forming his perception and capabilities. He moved with fluid grace, each action precisely calculated for maximum efficiency. The contract blade in his hand extended slightly, responding to his heightened state. Its edge cutting through dimensional currents as easily as physical matter. Hinata and Shikamaru coordinated seamlessly with his movements, their years of training together evident despite the extraordinary circumstances. Shikamaru's shadow techniques proved particularly effective against the stalkers, whose dimensional manipulation required stable reference points that his shadows could disrupt. Hinata's evolved Byakugan allowed her to target the precise weaknesses in their armor, her gentle fist strikes modified to affect energy junctions rather than chakra points. Yusaka fought with centuries of experience, her foxfire creating barriers that the stalkers couldn't dimensionally bypass. When one got too close, her tails became physical weapons, striking with precision and devastating force. Within minutes, all 8 stalkers lay defeated, some unconscious, others trapped in Shikamaru's shadow bindings, one encased in a foxfire prison of Yusaka's creation. "We need to interrogate this one," she said, indicating the captured stalker. "Find out exactly what we're facing." Naruto approached the foxfire prison, studying the stalker within. Unlike the featureless helmet of the hunter they'd encountered before, this one's visor was transparent, revealing a face that appeared almost human except for pupilless eyes that seemed to contain swirling voids. "Coalition operation designated Kyoto Purge," the stalker said before they could question it, its voice oddly flat. "Primary objective: neutralize yokai dimensional anomaly. Secondary objective: capture Trinity child if present." Its void-like eyes fixed on Naruto. Identity confirmed. Trinity child located. Alerting command structure. Despite being captured, it showed no fear or concern, merely stating facts as if reading from an internal script. "How many forces deployed?" Shikamaru demanded. 3 strike teams, each with 1 Harmony Weaver, 4 Void Stalkers, and 1 Suppression Engine, it replied without hesitation. Perimeter sealed with dimensional anchors to prevent mass evacuation. Yusaka's expression tightened with anger and concern. They came prepared for a complete purge. If the suppression engines reach full power, this entire pocket dimension will collapse. "Can your people escape to the human world?" Hinata asked. "Some can pass as human or survive in your dimension," Yusaka explained, "but many cannot. Their forms or energy requirements are incompatible with conventional reality. Then we need to disable those engines," Naruto decided. "Split up and hit all 3 simultaneously." Shikamaru shook his head. "Too risky. Based on what we just faced, each strike team is formidable. Better to concentrate our force, neutralize them one by one." "Time works against us," Yusaka countered. "Each engine that reaches full power increases the effectiveness of the others. Then we go together and move fast," Naruto said, the Nexus core pulsing with potential in his pocket. "Yusaka, which engine is closest to activation?" "The western boundary," she replied after a moment's concentration. "I can sense its harmonic disruption affecting the oldest trees in my realm." Naruto nodded decisively. "West first, then north, then east. No stealth. We hit them hard and fast." "What about him?" Hinata asked, indicating their prisoner. "Leave it to me," Yusaka said, making a complex gesture with her hands. The foxfire prison contracted rapidly, appearing to consume the stalker within. When the flames dissipated, a small fox statue stood in its place. Temporarily transformed. "The effect will wear off in a few hours." Naruto raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Noted. Now follow me. We need to move quickly." As they raced through the increasingly destabilized yokai realm, Naruto observed the effects of the coalition's attack. Beautiful gardens withered before their eyes, yokai in various forms, some humanoid, others fantastical, hurried toward the central palace, many carrying possessions or helping those too weak to move quickly. The very air seemed to thin in places, revealing glimpses of empty void where the dimensional fabric frayed. Your people have faced this before? He asked Yusaka as they ran. Never on this scale, she replied grimly. The coalition typically operates with more subtlety, isolating small yokai communities, creating natural disasters that eliminate our habitats, occasionally targeting influential individuals. This direct assault is unprecedented. Because of me, Naruto realized. They're accelerating their timeline because they know I'm awakening. Perhaps, she acknowledged, or perhaps events have reached a critical point regardless. The dimensional barriers have been under artificial strain for millennia. Eventually, something had to give. They reached the western boundary of her territory, a place where the cultivated gardens gave a wild forest illuminated by ethereal light. Here, the disruption was most evident. Trees twisted into impossible shapes, their silver leaves turning black and brittle. The ground itself seemed unstable, patches occasionally shifting out of phase with their surroundings. There, Hinata pointed, her Byakugan active. Beyond that distortion field, I can see a machine-like construct and several figures guarding it. Naruto focused his draconic senses, extending his perception beyond normal limits. The suppression engine came into focus, a pillar of crystalline technology that pulsed with sickly light, siphoning energy from the surrounding environment while emitting waves of harmonic disruption. 4 stalkers, as reported, Shikamaru confirmed, studying the scene with tactical precision. But what's that larger figure? The Harmony Weaver, Yusaka said, her voice tight with controlled anger. A being specially engineered to manipulate dimensional frequencies. Far more dangerous than the stalkers. Indeed, the Weaver was imposing, nearly 3 meters tall, with a body that seemed composed of overlapping plates of iridescent material. Where a head should have been, a cluster of crystal-like structures rotated slowly, emitting pulses of energy that synchronized with the engine's disruptive waves. Direct approach is suicide, Shikamaru assessed. The Weaver will detect us before we get close. Not if it's distracted, Naruto countered, the Nexus core warm in his hand. An idea was forming. Reckless, perhaps, but with potential. Yusaka, can you create a diversion from the opposite direction? Something that would draw their attention without putting yourself at risk. She considered this, then nodded. My foxfire can manifest independently of my physical presence. I can create the impression of a major attack from the north. Good. Hinata, you and Shikamaru circle around to the east. When the stalkers respond to Yusaka's diversion, target the junction between the engine and the ground. If it works like other coalition technology we've seen, disrupting its foundation should destabilize the entire construct. And you? Hinata asked, concern evident in her voice. Naruto smiled, the expression more predatory than reassuring as his draconic features became subtly more pronounced. I'm going to introduce myself to the Harmony Weaver. Shikamaru sighed, troublesome as always, but it might work. He fixed Naruto with a serious look. Just don't get yourself killed. Dimensional travel is annoying enough without having to retrieve your corpse. With their roles established, they separated. Naruto watched as Yusaka moved to a position where she could project her diversionary attack without exposing herself. Hinata and Shikamaru melted into the undergrowth with the stealth developed through years of shinobi training. Alone now, Naruto studied the Nexus core in his palm. The swirling galaxies within seemed to respond to his thoughts, patterns shifting in accordance with his intentions. Transformation was the key, not just physical, but conceptual. What had Tiamat said? Your greatest power lies in your ability to evolve beyond the limitations of any single heritage. Drawing upon instinctual knowledge that felt both foreign and intimately familiar, Naruto focused his intent through the core. The transformation began subtly, his physical foe, remaining mostly unchanged while his energy signature shifted dramatically. The draconic essence receded from the surface, replaced by a null state that would register as ambient energy to the coalition's sensors. It wasn't invisibility, but energetic camouflage. To detection systems calibrated for specific signatures, he would appear as background dimensional noise, present but unremarkable. The moment Yusaka's diversion began, Naruto moved. From the northern boundary came a spectacular display, dozens of foxfire constructs giving the impression of a full-scale yokai counterattack. The stalkers immediately responded, 3 of them moving to intercept while 1 remained with the Weaver to guard the engine. Naruto approached from the blind side, moving with preternatural grace through the distorted forest. His camouflaged energy signature allowed him to advance to within 20 meters before the remaining stalker showed any sign of detection. When it finally turned in his direction, uncertainty evident in its posture, Naruto abandoned subtlety for speed. The contract blade materialized in his hand as he crossed the remaining distance in a blur of motion. The stalker barely had time to raise its baton before Naruto was upon it, the blade severing the weapon along with the hand that held it. A second strike to the junction point at the neck, exactly as Hinata had identified, dropped the stalker without another sound. Now only the Harmony Weaver remained between him and the engine. Up close, the being was even more alien than it had appeared from a distance. Its crystalline head rotated to face him, the facets aligning to focus energy that crackled between them. Trinity anomaly detected, it announced, its voice a discordant harmony of multiple tones speaking simultaneously. Classification: existential threat. Response: neutralization. The energy building between its crystals discharged, not as a beam or bolt, but as a wave of harmonic distortion that rippled through space itself. Naruto felt the attack at a fundamental level, as if the very frequency of his existence was being forcibly retuned. Pain lanced through him as his triple nature rebelled against the forced harmonization. The Weaver was attempting to collapse his complex energy signature into a single, manageable frequency, a process that would effectively destroy the unique convergence that made him who he was. Desperate, Naruto reached for the Nexus core, channeling his need through it. The response was immediate and dramatic. His body began to transform, not into a dragon as he might have expected, but into something between states, neither fully physical nor entirely energy-based. The harmonic attack passed through this transitional form with diminished effect, like light through clouded glass. The Weaver paused, its crystals realigning as it analyzed this unexpected development. Adaptation detected. Recalibrating harmonic frequency. Naruto knew he wouldn't survive a second, calibrated attack. He needed to strike now, while the Weaver was adjusting. The contract blade hummed in his grip, responding to his urgency, but something told him conventional weapons would be ineffective against this engineered being. Instead, he drew upon a deeper understanding, the knowledge Tiamat had implanted during their meeting. The Weaver manipulated dimensional frequencies, creating artificial harmony to suppress natural energy flows. But such manipulation required a reference point, a baseline frequency from which to work. With sudden clarity, Naruto understood what he needed to do. Focusing through the Nexus core, he didn't just change his own frequency, he projected a counter-harmonic field, a discordant pattern specifically designed to disrupt the Weaver's calibration process. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Weaver's crystalline structures began to vibrate erratically, conflicting frequencies creating interference patterns that spread throughout its engineered form. Cracks appeared in its iridescent plating as internal systems failed to compensate for the contradictory inputs. Error. Harmonic integrity compromised, it announced, its multi-toned voice fragmenting into separate, chaotic components. System failure imminent. Emergency protocols. It never finished the statement. With a sound like shattering glass multiplied 1,000-fold, Harmony Weaver exploded into glittering fragments that hung momentarily in the air before collapsing into dimensional rifts that closed almost immediately. Naruto had no time to celebrate this victory. The suppression engine, now unattended, began to pulse more rapidly, as if entering an emergency activation sequence. From the corner of his eye, he saw Hinata and Shikamaru emerge from cover, moving toward the engine's base as planned. Wait, he called out, new understanding flowing through him. It's booby-trapped. There's a cascade failsafe. Hinata halted immediately, trusting his warning without question. What do we do? Naruto approached the engine carefully, studying its construction with senses that perceived beyond physical dimensions. The crystalline pillar was not merely technological but partially organic, grown rather than built. At its core pulsed a concentration of energy harvested from the surrounding environment, yokai energy, forcibly converted into the harmonic frequency preferred by the coalition. It needs to be retuned, not destroyed, he realized aloud. If we simply break it, all that harvested energy will release chaotically, potentially causing more damage than the engine itself. Shikamaru, ever the strategist, quickly grasped the implications. Can you retune it to restore rather than suppress? Maybe. Naruto placed his hand directly on the engine's surface, feeling its vibrations through his palm. With the Nexus core, I might be able to reverse its frequency, turning suppression into amplification. As he spoke, Yusaka rejoined them, her diversionary foxfire dissipating in the distance. The other stalkers realized the deception. They'll return soon. I need time, Naruto said, already focusing through the Nexus core, trying to understand the engine's complex frequency patterns. Can you hold them off? Yusaka's 9 tails spread wide, foxfire dancing between them. With pleasure. While she, Hinata, and Shikamaru formed a defensive perimeter, Naruto immersed himself in the intricate harmonic structure of the suppression engine. It was like a puzzle box of frequencies, each layer dependent on specific resonance patterns with the others. The coalition's engineering was impressive, even if its purpose was destructive. Gradually, with painstaking precision, he began to alter key frequencies, creating subtle shifts that cascaded through the system. The process required absolute concentration. One mistake could trigger the failsafe and release the harvested energy in a devastating burst. Around him, he was distant, aware of combat resuming as the returning stalkers engaged his companions. Yusaka fought with graceful ferocity, her foxfire creating barriers and weapons with equal facility. Hinata's evolved Byaku Yugen allowed her to target the stalkers' weak points with pinpoint accuracy, while Shikamaru's shadow techniques controlled the battlefield, limiting their dimensional movements. Finally, after what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, Naruto found the master frequency, the foundational harmonic upon which all others were built. With a focused pulse of energy through the Nexus core, he inverted it. The effect was beautiful and immediate. The sickly light emanating from the engine transformed, shifting through the spectrum until it radiated with the same ethereal glow as Yusaka's healthiest gardens. The harvested energy, previously contained and converted, now flowed outward in gentle waves, restoring rather than suppressing the natural dimensional frequencies of the yokai realm. Trees that had been twisted and withered began to straighten and revitalize. The unstable ground solidified, dimensional fraying repairing itself as the engine's beneficial influence spread. It's working, Hinata called out, momentarily distracted from the stalker she was fighting. That momentary lapse almost proved costly. The stalker lunged forward, dimensional disruptor aimed at her exposed back. Before it could connect, however, a shadow tendril wrapped around its wrist, halting the attack mid-strike. Pay attention, Shikamaru chided, his shadow extending from where he stood immobilizing another opponent. Troublesome as it is, we're not done yet. With the engine repurposed and actively restoring the western boundary, the remaining stalkers found themselves at a significant disadvantage. Their dimensional manipulation abilities faltered in the presence of the strengthened natural frequencies, making them vulnerable to conventional attacks. Within moments, the skirmish was over. 2 stalkers lay unconscious. One was bound in Shikamaru's shadow technique, and the fourth had fled, presumably to warn the other strike teams. That was impressive, Yusaka acknowledged, studying the transformed engine with open admiration. I didn't think coalition technology could be repurposed like this. Neither did they, apparently, Naruto replied, still somewhat surprised himself at what he'd accomplished. Their systems are designed to impose artificial harmony, but harmony itself isn't inherently destructive. It's the forcing of inappropriate frequencies that causes harm. A philosophical distinction the coalition seems to have missed, Yusaka noted dryly. Or deliberately ignored. We need to move quickly, Shikamaru interrupted, ever practical. The northern engine will be on high alert now that we've neutralized this one. More than alert, Hinata confirmed, her Byakugan focused in that direction. I can see them reinforcing their position. The remaining strike teams appear to be consolidating. Quote, Naruto considered this tactical shift. They're adapting to our success. If both remaining teams combine at the northern boundary, a direct assault becomes much more dangerous. But we can't simply ignore them, Yusaka pointed out. Even with one engine repurposed, 2 active suppression engines will eventually overwhelm my realm's natural resilience. An idea formed in Naruto's mind. Reckless, perhaps, but with potential. What if we don't fight them directly? What if we use their own strategy against them? Explain, Shikamaru prompted, recognize. Ing the gleam of inspired planning in his friend's eyes. The engines work by imposing artificial harmonic frequencies, right? But we just proved they can be inverted to amplify natural frequencies instead. Naruto gestured to the transformed engine beside them. What if we push this inversion to an extreme? Create a harmonic resonance cascade that disrupts their equipment from a distance. Yasuko's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. Using this engine as a transmitter to affect the others. It could work, but the power requirements would be enormous. I can provide the power, Naruto assured her. The draconic essence within me is basically dimensional energy in its raw form. Troublesome, Shikamaru sighed, already calculating probabilities. But potentially effective. What do you need from us? Protection while I work, Naruto replied, placing both hands on the transformed engine. This will take intense concentration, and I'll be vulnerable during the process. His companions formed a defensive perimeter around him. Naruto closed his eyes and focused inward, drawing upon the draconic essence that flowed through his veins. The Nexus core responded to his intent, facilitating the transformation of his internal energy into a form the engine could utilize. Power flowed from him into the crystalline structure, which began to pulse with increasing brightness. The harmonic frequency it emitted shifted, becoming more penetrating, more fundamental, a resonance that reached across dimensional barriers to touch its counterparts. In his mind's eye, enhanced by draconic perception, Naruto could see the energy wave propagating outward, crossing the yokai realm toward the northern and eastern boundaries where the other engines stood. When it reached them, the effect was not immediate destruction but subtle subversion, their own harmonic systems becoming conduits for the inverted frequency. He sensed resistance, emergency protocols activating, weavers at MPT-ing to counteract the foreign resonance, but the cascade had begun. Like a virus spreading through interconnected systems, the inverted harmonic infected the coalition's carefully calibrated technology. The process drained him severely. Sweat beaded on his forehead, then turned to steam as his body temperature rose with exertion. Scales manifested across his skin as the draconic essence responded to his need. Channeling more power than his human form could safely contain. Just when it seemed he might lose consciousness from the strain, he felt cool hands on his shoulders, Hinata, providing support both physical and energetic. Through their contact, he sensed her Byakugan actively directing his scattered energy, refining its flow to reduce wastage. Almost there, he gasped, feeling the distant engines approaching critical transformation thresholds. Just a little more. With a final surge of effort, he pushed his power to its limit. The engine before him flared with blinding light, its harmonic resonance reaching a perfect frequency that could not be resisted by its counterparts. Across the yokai realm, the two remaining suppression engines simultaneously transformed, their suppressive energy converting to restorative waves that rippled outward. Naruto collapsed to his knees, utterly spent. The draconic scales receded from his skin, leaving him looking human once more, if exhausted beyond measure. Did it work? He asked, voice hoarse from exertion. Hinata, still supporting him, nodded. The other engines have transformed. I can see their energy signatures changing, becoming synchronized with this one. Quote, the coalition forces, Shikamaru inquired, ever mindful of potential threats. Retreating, Yusaka reported, a note of satisfaction in her usually composed voice. Their technology backfiring seems to have caught them completely unprepared. Indeed, throughout the yokai realm, dimensional stability was rapidly returning. The withered vegetation rejuvenated, the unstable ground solidified, and the thinning areas of reality repaired themselves as the transformed engines pumped restorative energy into their environment. We should pursue them, Naruto suggested, attempting to stand despite his exhaustion. End this threat completely. Not in your condition, Hinata said firmly, keeping him seated with gentle pressure on his shoulders. Besides, they're retreating through dimensional rifts. Without knowing where they lead, pursuit would be reckless. She's right, Shikamaru agreed. We've won this battle. Let's not risk losing the war through overextension. Yusaka approached, her 9 tails now relaxed behind her, their movement graceful rather than agitated. Your friends are wise, Trinity child. The coalition has been dealt a signif. I can't blow today. Not just in failed operation, but in revealed vulnerability. Their technology can be turned against them. That knowledge alone is worth more than capturing a few fleeing soldiers. Naruto reluctantly accepted their counsel, though the warrior in him chafed at allowing enemies to escape. Will your realm recover fully? Thanks to your intervention, yes, Yusaka confirmed. The transformed engines are actually beneficial now, strengthening the natural dimensional frequencies that sustain this pocket reality. A rare, genuine smile softened her regal features. My people owe you a debt that cannot easily be repaid. Quote, I don't need repayment, Naruto replied honestly. But I could use allies. The coalition won't stop coming after me, and I still need to find the artifacts connected to my angelic and demonic heritage. Yusaka nodded solemnly. The yokai of Kyoto stand with you, Trinity child. Our resources, knowledge, and sanctuary are yours when needed. She gestured toward her palace. Now gleaming in the distance as the rejuvenated light of her realm reached it. Come, you need rest and recovery before continuing your journey. As they made their way toward the palace, Naruto observed the yokai emerging from shelter, their varied forms, some humanoid, others fantastical, moving with renewed vigor as their realm stabilized around them. Many stopped to bow respectfully as Yusaka passed, their curious gazes lingering on the strange visitors accompanying their leader. They seem accepting of outsiders, Hinata noted, smiling gently at a small fox child who peeked at them from behind a flowering bush. Yokai understand liminality better than most beings, Yusaka explained. Existing between defined states is our natural condition. Those who cross boundaries are kindred spirits, not threats. The palace itself was a marvel of yokai architecture, a structure that seemed simultaneously solid and fluid, its elegant lines flowing like brush strokes from a master calligrapher's hand. Inside, the aesthetic continued with rooms that somehow felt larger than their exterior dimensions would allow, decorated with art that shifted subtly when viewed from different angles. Servants, some appearing human, others distinctly not, guided them to a central chamber where cushions surrounded a low table already set with refreshments. The food was unfamiliar but enticing, giving off aromas that stimulated not just hunger but a sense of vitality. Restoration cuisine, Yusaka explained as they seated themselves. Specifically prepared for energy recovery after dimensional exertion. Please, eat freely. Quote, they needed no further encouragement. The battle and its aftermath had left them all depleted, though none as severely as Naruto. The food proved as effective as it was delicious, with each bite. He felt strength returning, the draconic essence within him recharging more rapidly than should have been possible. Your realm is remarkable, he commented between mouthfuls. I've never experienced a place so harmonious. That harmony was hard-won, Yusaka replied, sipping from a cup of luminescent liquid. Yokai are naturally diverse, often with competing interests or territorial instincts. Creating a society where all types can coexist requires constant attention to balance. Like the balance I'm trying to achieve between my three heritages, Naruto observed. Precisely. Her keen eyes studied him with renewed interest. Which is why I believe our meeting was not coincidental. The mountain leading you to me, my territory under attack at exactly this moment. These are not random events. You think there's some greater pattern at work? Shikamaru asked, his analytical mind always seeking underlying structures. The dimensions themselves seek balance, Yusaka confirmed. When artificial barriers create excessive separation, natural forces work to restore proper flow. Those of us who exist at intersections become focal points for these corrective movements. Focal points like me, Naruto surmised. And me, Hinata added quietly, everyone turning to look at her. My Byakugan's evolution isn't random either. It's responding to the same forces, allowing me to perceive what needs to be seen. Yusaka nodded approvingly. You understand. The question now becomes, where does this pattern lead you next? Naruto withdrew the Nexus core from his pocket, studying its swirling internal galaxies. According to Tiamat, I need to seek the artifact connected to my angelic heritage next. She said Gabriel left it, in the care of 1W. Ho walks the boundary between human and divine. A cryptic clue, Shikamaru observed dryly. Troublesome. Perhaps not so cryptic, Yusaka countered. There are beings known as divine intermedia. Rise in various traditions, individuals granted authority to interact with both mortal and celestial realms. Like priests, Hinata suggested. Some priests, yes, but more specifically those formally recognized by celestial authorities. In your world, they might be known as oracles, shrine maidens with true power, or blessed individuals who bear divine marks. This information sparked a memory. In Naruto, something from the knowledge Tiamat had implanted during their meeting. There's a mountain temple in the eastern region of Fire Country. It's said to exist simultaneously in the human world and in a reflection of heaven. Though most visitors only perceive its physical aspect. The Twilight Sanctuary, Hinata said suddenly, her evolved Byakugan activating briefly as if responding to the mention. The scroll mentioned it, a place where realms overlap. Yes, Naruto confirmed, excitement building as connections formed. That must be where we need to go next. A journey for tomorrow, Yusaka advised firmly. Tonight, you need complete recovery. Dimensional travel in your current state would be unnecessarily taxing. Though eager to continue his quest, Naruto recognized the wisdom in her words. His energy levels, while improved by the restorative food, remained far from optimal. A night's rest would make a significant difference. Agreed, he conceded, but we leave at first light. Yusaka inclined her head in acknowledgement. Of course, I'll arrange for rooms and additional provisions for your journey. She rose gracefully. Rest well, Trinity child. The path ahead grows no easier. But you've proven yourself equal to its challenges thus far. After she departed, Shikamaru stretched languidly. Troublesome as this whole situation is, I have to admit it's intellectually stimulating. Dimensional theory, cosmic balance, prophecies that actually manifest, it's like living in one of those ancient legends. Except we don't know how the legend ends, Hinata pointed out softly. That's the best part, Naruto responded with a tired but genuine smile. We get to write that ourselves. Later, alone in the room provided for him, Naruto sat cross-legged on a meditation mat. The tidal heart and nexus core placed before him. In the quiet solitude, he reflected on how dramatically his understanding of himself had expanded in mere days. The draconic essence within him no longer felt foreign or overwhelming but integrated, a fundamental aspect of his being rather than an addition. Through Tiamat's trial and the subsequent battle in Yusaka's realm, he had begun to truly understand what it meant to be dragon-blooded. Adaptability, transformation, the perception of patterns beyond conventional dimensions. Yet this was only 1/3 of his heritage. The angelic and demonic aspects remained less developed, though he had glimpsed their potential. The contract blade that materialized in response to his will drew upon his devil lineage, while moments of enhanced perception and judgment connected to his angelic inheritance. What would it mean to fully integrate all three? Not just coexistence but true harmony between dragon, angel, and devil. The quest, Ion, was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. A soft knock interrupted his meditation. Opening the door, he found Hinata standing in the hallway, her expression suggesting she had been debating whether to disturb him. Sorry, she began, but there's something I wanted to discuss privately. Of course, he replied, stepping aside to invite her in. Everything okay? She entered, her movements graceful but hesitant. In the soft light of the yokai palace, her features seemed more defined, the subtle changes in her appearance since her Byakugan's evolution more apparent. Her eyes, always distinctive with their pale lavender hue, now contained hints of opalescence that caught the light in hypnotic patterns. During the battle, she said, seating herself on a cushion near his meditation mat. When you were channeling power through the engine, I saw something unusual. More unusual than me turning into a half-dragon and reprogramming dimensional technology. He asked with a small smile. She returned the smile briefly before continuing seriously. Your energy patterns weren't just draconic. There were moments when they shifted, displaying characteristics I associate with your angelic and demonic aspects as well. It was as if all three were contributing to the effort, not just the dragon. Naruto frowned thoughtfully. I didn't consciously draw on those aspects. Exactly. They responded to need rather than intent. Her eyes met his directly. I think your three heritages are integrating more naturally than you realize. Not fighting for dominance but finding complementary functions. This observation aligned with his own meditation. That makes sense. Transformation isn't just the dragon's domain, it's the fundamental principle I need to apply to my entire situation. Not forcing harmony but allowing natural integration. Hinata nodded, pleased he understood. There's something else. She hesitated, then continued more softly. My Byakugan's evolution. I've been having dreams about it. Dreams where I'm standing between worlds, seeing through veils that separate different realities. Like your eyes are evolving to perceive dimensional boundaries. Yes, but it's more than that. She looked down at her hands, which trembled slightly. I think my bloodline might have connections to realms beyond our own. That the Byakugan itself might have originated from somewhere else. Naruto recalled Vritra's comment about Dujutsu having interdimensional origins. That would explain your natural attunement to these changes. Your eyes are reconnecting with their true potential. It's frightening, she admitted. I've defined myself as a Hyuga my entire life, with all the traditions and limitations that entails. If my bloodline actually comes from somewhere else, somewhere beyond human understanding, it doesn't change who you are, Naruto assured her, moving to sit beside her. It expands it, just like learning about my heritage does. NT erase my life in Konoha or my bonds there. She looked up at him, vulnerability and strength equally present in her expression. How do you do that? Face such massive revelations about yourself without losing your center? He considered the question seriously. I think it's because I always felt like something was missing. Like the story I was told about myself was incomplete. Learning the truth, however complex or overwhelming, feels like finding missing pieces rather than having my identity shattered. Hinata nodded slowly. I understand that. There have always been aspects of the Byakugan that didn't make sense within purely human context, abilities that seemed to hint at something more. Her expression became more resolved. I want to discover that truth, wherever it leads. We'll discover it together, Naruto promised. Whatever lies ahead at the Twilight Sanctuary or beyond, we face it as a team. The simple declaration seemed to ease her concerns. She rose gracefully, her composure restored. Thank you. I should let you rest now. After she left, Naruto returned to his meditation, but with a slightly different focus. Instead of concentrating exclusively on his draconic aspect, he allowed his awareness to expand, acknowledging the angelic and demonic essences as well. To his surprise, they responded readily, not competing but complementing each other in subtle ways. The dragon provided perception beyond conventional dimensions, the angel offered clarity of purpose and judgment, and the devil contributed strategic awareness and binding will. Together, they formed something greater than their separate parts, a unique perspective that was distinctly his own. As sleep finally claimed him, Naruto's last conscious thought was that perhaps the coalition's greatest fear was justified. Not because his existence threatened destruction, but because it demonstrated a harmony they had long declared impossible. In a cosmos built on artificial separation, genuine integration was indeed revolutionary. Morning arrived with surprising normalcy, sunlight filtering through windows, distant sounds of activity, the scent of breakfast being prepared. For a moment, Naruto could almost imagine he was back in Konoha, preparing for a routine mission. Then he felt the tidal heart and nexus core pulsing gently beside his sleeping mat, and reality reasserted itself. He was in a yokai palace in a pocket dimension, preparing to seek an angelic artifact left by his celestial mother, with a coalition of dimensional purists hunting him across multiple realities. Just another day, he muttered to himself with wry acceptance. After a brief but invigorating morning routine, he joined Hinata and Shikamaru in a garden courtyard where breakfast awaited. Yusaka was already present, engaged in conversation with a yokai attendant who departed with a respectful bow as Naruto approached. I trust you rested well, she inquired as they seated themselves. Better than expected, Naruto confirmed. Your realm has remarkable restorative properties. A natural characteristic of balanced dimensional space, Yusaka explained. When energy flows harmoniously, recovery accelerates. She gestured to the food before them. Please, eat. You have a significant journey ahead. The breakfast was as exquisite as the previous evening's meal, foods that nourished on multiple levels, providing not just physical sustenance but energetic renewal. As they ate, Yusaka unfolded a map unlike any Naruto had seen before. Instead of flat parchment, it appeared to be a thin slice of crystal that displayed multiple overlapping landscapes simultaneously. A dimensional transit map, she explained, noting their fascination. It shows confluence points where different realms touch or overlap. Her slender finger indicated a location to the east of their position. This is your human world, specifically the region you call Fire Country. The crystalline surface shifted slightly, bringing that area into clearer focus. Landmarks Naruto recognized appeared: Konoha, major rivers, mountain ranges, but with additional features overlaid in different colors. The blue markings indicate natural dimensional thin points. Yusaka continued: places where the barrier between realms requires minimal energy to cross. The gold markings are celestial anchors, locations where the human world D and higher realms maintain consistent connection. Her finger moved to a particular golden mark in the eastern mountains. This is what you called the Twilight Sanctuary. In yokai tradition, it's known as the Mirror of Heaven's Gate, a temple complex that exists simultaneously in multiple dimensions. That's where Gabriel's artifact would be, Hinata asked, studying the location with interest. It aligns with the clue. Yusaka confirmed. The temple is maintained by an order of shrine attendants who walk the boundary between human and divine, quite literally. They exist in both realms simultaneously, though few possess full awareness of this duality. Shikamaru leaned closer, his analytical mind fully engaged. These red markings scattered throughout the map, what do they represent? Coalition monitoring stations, Yusaka replied grimly. Facilities designed to detect and respond to unauthorized dimensional transitions. Naruto noted with concern that several such markings surrounded the Twilight Sanctuary. They're watching the temple already. They monitor all significant confluence points, Yusaka confirmed. But their presence has increased dramatically in recent weeks. Your awakening has them frightened. Trinity child. Good, Naruto said with quiet determination. They should be. Yusaka's expression remained neutral, but something like approval flickered in her eyes. I've prepared supplies for your journey, including focal crystals that will help mask your distinctive energy signature during transit. They won't hide you completely, but they should redo. CE the range at which coalition sensors can detect you. Thank you, Naruto said sincerely. For everything. Your help has been invaluable. Our interests align, she replied pragmatically, though her tone had warmed slightly. The coalition threatens all beings who exist at dimensional intersections. Yokai have suffered their purification campaigns for generations. If your awakening disrupts their power structure, we all benefit. Quote, after finishing breakfast and gathering the promised supplies, they prepared for departure. Yusaka led them to a secluded garden where a reflecting pool capped the morning light in impossible patterns. This pool connects to similar waters throughout the dimensions, she explained. With proper focus, it can serve as a transit point to locations sharing its resonance frequency. She handed Naruto a small vial of water that seemed to glow from within. Water from the spring at the Twilight Sanctuary. It will guide your passage. Naruto accepted the vial, feeling its subtle resonance with his own energies. Will we be able to return this way if necessary? Yes. The connection, once established, remains accessible to those who have traversed it before. Yusaka's 9 tails swayed in a complex pattern that seemed to manipulate energy currents around the pool. I've prepared the pathway. You need only focus on your destination while holding the vial. As Naruto, Hinata, and Shikamaru positioned themselves beside the pool, Yusaka offered a final word of advice. The Twilight Sanctuary exists in multiple states simultaneously. What you perceive will depend on your nature and your needs. Trust your instincts over your eyes. With that cryptic guidance, she stepped back, her tails completing their mysterious manipulation of energies. The pool's surface began to ripple. Though no wind disturbed the garden, reflections shifted from the surrounding scenery to somewhere else entirely, a mountainside where ancient trees surrounded stone structures that seemed to shimmer between different architectural styles. Ready? Naruto asked his companions, who nodded their assent. Holding the vial of sanctuary water before him, Naruto focused his intent on their destination. The Nexus core pulsed in his pocket, responding to the dimensional transition about to occur. With a deep breath, he stepped forward into the pool, not sinking into water but passing through a membrane between worlds. Hinata and Shikamaru followed immediately behind, the surface rippling as they crossed the threshold. As the dimensional shift completed, Naruto's last glimpse of Yusaka showed her with an unreadable expression. 9 tails forming a complex pattern behind her that might have been a gesture of blessing or protection. Then the yokai realm vanished entirely, replaced by the mountainous landscape they had glimpsed in the pool's reflection. The transition was smoother than previous dimensional crossings, more like stepping through a doorway than the disorienting shift they had experienced before. They stood on a stone path winding up a forested mountainside. Ancient cedar trees towered around them, their massive trunks covered in moss that seemed to glow with subtle inner light. The air carried a scent of incense and ozone, as if a lightning storm had recently passed through sacred space. Did it work? Shikamaru asked, surveying their surroundings with tactical awareness. This could still be within the yokai realm. Hinata activated her evolved Byakugan, scanning the environment. No, we've definitely transitioned. This is our world, but... She frowned slightly. There's something unusual about the energy patterns here. It's like seeing multiple overlapping images of the same location. The Twilight Sanctuary, Naruto confirmed, feeling the resonance of the place with his draconic senses. Existing in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. He looked up the path, where stone steps led toward structures visible through the trees. Let's move. According to Tiamat, Gabriel's artifact awaits us here. As they ascended, the unusual nature of the sanctuary became increasingly apparent. Stone lanterns lining the path seemed to flicker between different designs depending on the angle from which they were viewed. The trees occasionally shimmered, momentarily revealing alternative forms, sometimes appearing as columns of light. Other times as living beings frozen in meditative posture. Dimensional bleed through, Naruto explained, noting his companion's reactions to these phenomena. We're seeing fragments of how this place exists in other realms. When they finally reached the temple complex proper, the effect was even more pronounced. Traditional shrine buildings stood in harmonious arrangement, but the IR details constantly shifted, roof tiles transforming to golden scales, wooden pillars becoming crystalline, stone foundations flowing like liquid before resolidifying in slightly different configurations. It's beautiful, Hinata breathed, her evolved Byakugan capturing more of these transitions than conventional vision could perceive. Like watching a dance between different versions of reality. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered, though his expression betrayed fascination rather than complaint. How do we find Gabriel's artifact in a place that can't decide what it is? Before Naruto could respond, movement caught their attention. A figure emerged from the main shrine building, a woman in traditional shrine maiden attire, though her clothing shimmered occasionally to reveal hints of or elaborate ceremonial garments beneath. Her age was difficult to determine, sometimes appearing youthful, other times ancient, depending on how the light struck her features. Welcome, seekers, she greeted them, her voice carrying harmonic undertones reminiscent of the Harmony Weaver but warmer, more natural. The sanctuary acknowledges your presence. Naruto stepped forward, feeling the Taida, heart and Nexus core responding to this place and its guardian. I am Naruto Uzumaki, son of 3 realms, she interrupted with a gentle smile. Yes, we know who you are, Trinity child. The sanctuary has awaited your arrival for 19 years. This declaration caught them all by surprise. You knew I would come? Naruto asked. The Lady of Light told us, the Shrine Maiden explained. She entrusted her token to our keeping, she said her child would one day seek it. The signs of your approach have been manifesting for weeks, dimensional fluctuations, awakening ley lines, and most recently, the Coalition's increased surveillance of our boundaries. Her knowing reference to Gabriel and the Coalition confirmed they were in the right place. Then you understand why I'm here, Naruto said. She nodded, her form briefly shifting to reveal multiple overlapping versions of herself occupying the same space. To claim your celestial heritage, as you have begun to claim your draconic essence. Her gaze moved to the tidal heart visible beneath his shirt and somehow perceived the Nexus core in his pocket. The tokens of transformation are active within you already. Now you seek balance through revelation. The formal, somewhat cryptic language reminded Naruto of Chironics and other extra-dimensional beings they had encountered. This woman clearly existed partially outside conventional human experience. What do we call you? Hinata asked politely. The Shrine Maiden's smile widened slightly. Names are complex in a place that exists across multiple states of being. In this aspect, you may call me Miyako. In others, I bear different designations, but that need not concern you now. She gestured toward the shrine complex. Please, follow me. The coalition's attention makes haste advisable. As they followed Miyako deeper into the sanctuary, Naruto noticed that the dimensional shifting became more pronounced. Entire buildings briefly transformed into structures of impossible geometry before returning to their earthly appearance. The ground beneath their feet occasionally became transparent, revealing layers of reality below, sometimes cosmic void, sometimes crystalline foundations. Sometimes networks of light resembling neural pathways. The veil thins as we approach the inner sanctum, Miyako explained, noting their reactions. What you perceive depends partly on your nature and partly on the sanctuary's current alignment. It's responding to us, Shikamaru asked skeptically. To him, Miyako corrected, nodding toward Naruto. The Trinity Child's essence accelerates the natural dimensional cycling of this place. It recognizes kindred liminality. They reached a courtyard at the center of the complex, where a small, perfect garden surrounded a circular pool of water so still it appeared solid. Unlike the buildings around it, this central area remained stable, unaffected by the dimensional shifts occurring elsewhere. The heart of the sanctuary, Miyako announced, where all versions of this place converge into a single, unified point. She turned to face them fully. And where the Lady of Light left her token for you, Naruto Uzumaki. As if responding to her words, the pool began to glow with gentle radiance. From its depths, a small object rose without disturbing the water's surface, a feather that emanated soft, golden light. The Seraphim's Pinion, Miyako identified it, freely given by Gabriel herself, containing a measure of her celestial essence. Her expression became solemn. Approach and claim it, Trinity Child. But be warned, unlike your draconic tokens, the angelic artifact will test your worthiness through purification rather than transformation. The experience may be intense. Naruto stepped forward, drawn by an inexplicable certainty that this was indeed the second artifact he sought. As he reached the pool's edge, the feather floated toward him, hovering just beyond his grasp. What must I do? He asked, sensing that simply taking it would not suffice. Immerse yourself, Miyako instructed. The waters of the heart reflect all aspects of those who enter them. What emerges depends on what is revealed. With a deep breath and a reassuring nod to his concerned companions, Naruto stepped into the pool. The water was neither cold nor warm but seemed to exist beyond such physical properties. It enveloped him without wetness, filling his lungs without drowning, surrounding his consciousness without overwhelming it. Within this strange immersion, the Seraphim's Pinion approached, its golden light intensifying until it was all he could perceive. When it touched his chest, directly over his heart, everything changed. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Feathers of Light. The world dissolved into light. Naruto floated in a sea of radiance so pure it transcended color, existing in spectrums beyond mortal perception. The Seraphim's Pinion, Gabriel's feather, had melted into his chest, and with it a flood of sensations unlike anything he had experienced when claiming his draconic tokens. Where the dragon essence had brought primal power and cosmic awareness, this angelic energy brought crystalline clarity and piercing truth. Every thought, every memory, every action of his life suddenly illuminated from within, nothing hidden, nothing obscured. It was beautiful and terrible simultaneously. Welcome, my son, a voice resonated through his being. Unlike Tiamat's ancient, primal presence, this consciousness felt like pure intention given form, love crystallized into awareness. Mother, Naruto whispered, though he had no physical body in this realm of light. The radiance coalesced, taking shape before him. A woman of impossible beauty materialized, not beautiful in merely human terms, but in a way that suggested perfect harmony of form and essence. 6 wings of luminous gold extended from her back, each feather intricate with patterns that told stories of creation itself. Her eyes held the compassion of one who had witnessed both the highest glory and deepest suffering of existence and loved it all equally. Yes and no, she replied, her voice still resonating through multiple layers of his awareness rather than arriving through conventional hearing. As with your draconic trial, I am an aspect of Gabriel drawn from your own blood connection, given form through the Pinion's power. The light surrounding them shifted, forming a space that resembled a garden unlike any on Earth. Plants made of crystallized light, flowing water that sang harmonies as it moved, path. AYS paved with what appeared to be solidified moonlight. The Garden of Revelation, Gabriel explained, noting his wonder. A place between heaven's highest tier and the dimensional boundaries. Here, I can speak with you directly, without the filters that normally separate angelic and mortal consciousness. Unlike his meeting with Tiamat, where the dragon goddess had maintained a certain formality despite their connection. Gabriel approached and embraced him. The sensation was overwhelming, like being enfolded in unconditional acceptance so complete it threatened to dissolve his sense of separate self. I have so many questions. Naruto began when she finally released him. I know, she smiled, the expression radiating such warmth it seemed to heal wounds he hadn't realized he carried. And unlike your draconic mother, who tested through challenge, I will answer freely. Angels reveal rather than obscure, it is our fundamental nature. She gestured, and they were suddenly seated in a pavilion crafted from materials that seemed to exist at the boundary between matter and energy. A small table between them held what appeared to be cups of light. Drink, she encouraged. It will help you process what I must share. Naruto did as instructed, finding the liquid tasted like nothing and everything simultaneously, as if he were experiencing the essence of taste itself rather than any specific flavor. Immediately, his perception expanded further, his consciousness stabilizing despite the overwhelming angelic energies surrounding him. Why did you leave me? He asked, the Cheon that had burned within him since discovering his true parentage. Gabriel's radiance dimmed slightly, her perfect features showing genuine sorrow. To protect you, and to fulfill a greater purpose. Your conception was simultaneously miracle and transgression, a union of forces traditionally opposed, creating potential beyond imagination. The garden around them shifted, scenes forming in the air like living murals. Naruto witnessed three figures meeting in a neutral space between dimensions, Gabriel in her current form, Tiamat in her humanoid aspect, and a man with crimson hair and eyes held both compassion and terrible power. Sears X Lucifer, your third parent, Gabriel identified the man. Once of House Grimori, now Devil King of the Underworld. Our meeting was unprecedented. Angel, dragon, and devil. Not in conflict but in cooperation. Because of the coalition, Naruto surmised, remembering what Tiamat had revealed. Yes, we discovered their manipulation independently. How they harvested the energy created by artificial separation between realms, how they spread dogma about the dangers of natural convergence while profiting from dimensional isolation. The scene shifted, showing massive machines drawing energy from tiers in reality. Each of us represented a major cosmic force affected by their actions. Together, we realized that opposition alone would not suffice. You needed someone who could exist in all realms simultaneously, Naruto said, repeating the understanding he had gained from Tiamat. More than that, Gabriel corrected gently. We needed living proof that harmony between supposedly opposing forces was possible. Not merely coexistence, but true integration. Her eyes held his with piercing intensity. You are not just a bridge between realms, my son. You are the embodiment of cosmic reconciliation, the living truth that contradicts millennia of artificial division. The implications staggered him. That's why the coalition fears me so much. Not just because I might weaken dimensional barriers, but because my existence undermines their entire worldview. Precisely. Gabriel's approval warmed him from within. Those who profit own separation cannot tolerate the possibility of harmony. Your unique nature, dragon, angel, devil in perfect balance, represents everything they have denied for countless ages. But if that's true, Naruto questioned, why hide me in the human world? Why not raise me with knowledge of my heritage and purpose? Sadness passed across Gabriel's radiant features. Because your power had to develop naturally, finding its own balance rather than being shaped by external forces. Had you been raised in heaven, the angelic aspect would have dominated. In the dragon realm, draconic energy would have overwhelmed the others. In the underworld, devilish tendencies would have taken precedence. The garden shifted again, showing a young Minato Namikaze receiving a swaddled infant from Gabriel's hands. The human world, with its unique chakra system unlike any other dimensional energy, provided neutral ground where all three aspects could develop in harmony. Her expression softened with memory. Asterisk. Minato Namikaze was chosen with great care, a human of exceptional character and ability, who would raise you with love while remaining unaware of your full nature. Asterisk. Until the Nine Tails attacked, Naruto said quietly. Gabriel nodded solemnly. An unforeseen complication. We suspect coalition involvement, though we could never prove it. They have agents throughout all realms, and your presence Earth created ripples they might have detected despite our precautions. Asterisk. She leaned forward, her light intensifying. What matters is that you survived and thrived, developing into exactly what we had hoped, a being of genuine harmony. Your human experiences shaped you perfectly, teaching you compassion, perseverance, and the value of bonds that transcend difference. Asterisk. Something about her explanation still didn't satisfy him. Why not contact me sooner? Why wait until my powers began awakening on their own? For protection. Yours and the cosmic balance. Gabriel's expression grew grave. Time we interacted with your dimension, we created detectable disturbances that the coalition could track. Complete separation was necessary until you reached sufficient maturity to defend yourself. Asterisk. She gestured, and the scene shifted to show multiple attempts by shadowy figures to locate something on Earth, only to be misdirected by subtle interventions. We watched over you from afar, each of us in our own way. Tiamat manipulated dimensional currents to obscure your energy signature. Sears X created false trails to distract coalition hunters. I wove protections into the very fabric of your being, subtle blessings that manifested as your remarkable resilience and ability to connect with others. Asterisk. This revelation touched Naruto deeply, the knowledge that, however distant, his extraordinary parents had never truly abandoned him. The coalition is moving more aggressively now, he informed her. They attacked Yasaka's yokai realm directly. Tiamat said they've activated something led the Harmonic suppression network earlier than expected. Gabriel's light flickered with concern. This confirms our worst fears. They sense the approaching tipping point. The natural convergence had occurs cyclically throughout cosmic history. Dimensional barriers thin, allowing necessary exchange between realms. Her expression hardened with unusual severity for an angelic being. By artificially reinforcing these barriers, they risked catastrophic buildup of pressure that could rupture reality itself. Asterisk. And my awakening accelerates this process. Your existence represents the natural order reasserting itself. Asterisk. She corrected. The convergence would happen with or without you, but your presence catalyzes it in a controlled, harmonious manner rather than a chaotic rupture. Asterisk. Naruto absorbed this information, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the rightness of his path. So what happens now? I've claimed the draconic tokens, the tidal heart and nexus core. Now I have your opinion. What does it do exactly? Gabriel smiled, the expression illuminating the garden around them. The Seraphim's pinion connects you to your angelic heritage, specifically, to the principles of revelation and judgment that I embody. Unlike draconic transformation or devilish binding, angelic power manifests through illumination, seeing truth and distinguishing light from darkness. Asterisk. She reached out, placing her hand over his heart where the pinion had merged with his essence. When fully integrated, it will grant you perception beyond mortal limitations, the ability to discern truth from falsehood, and power to reveal what is hidden, including the artificial constructs the coalition uses to maintain dimensional separation. Asterisk. That sounds incredibly useful, Naruto observed. It is also incredibly dangerous. Gabriel cautioned. Truth is a double-edged sword, my son. Some beings cannot bear full illumination, it would destroy them. With great revelation comes great responsibility. Why? You must learn discernment, when to illuminate and when to temper your light. Asterisk. The garden around them began to shimmer, its edges becoming less distinct. Our time grows short, asterisk. Gabriel noted. The integration process continues, but I must warn you of a challenge you will face upon returning to physical consciousness. Asterisk. What challenge? Unlike draconic energy, which adapts to its environment, angelic essence seeks to transform environment to its nature. Your awakening celestial power will react strongly against anything corrupted or unnaturally darkened, including aspects of your own demonic heritage. Asterisk. Concern flickered through Naruto. Will my different aspects start fighting each other? Not fighting. Balancing. Asterisk. Gabriel corrected. Remember that balance does not mean equal distribution at all times, but appropriate application in right circumstance. There will be situations where your angelic nature must lead, others where draconic transformation proves essential, and still others where devilish binding becomes necessary. Asterisk. She rose, her 6 wings extending to their full magnificent span. One final gift before you return. Approaching him, she placed both hands on either side of his face. Her touch cool and electric like sunlight on crystal. Knowledge. Asterisk. As with Tiamat's gift, information flowed into Naruto's consciousness, but where draconic knowledge had focused on dim dimensional awareness and transformation principles, this angelic download centered on perception beyond physical limitations, recognition of subtle energies, languages of celestial beings, and most importantly, understanding of divine law that governed interdimensional interactions. When you face the coalition again, asterisk. Gabriel explained as the knowledge settled into his mind, they will attempt to justify their actions through corrupted interpretations of cosmic principles. This understanding will help you recognize truth from manipulation. Asterisk. The garden around them began to dissolve, light fragmenting into individual motes that swirled like galaxies being born. My time with you ends for now, but the connection remains. The pinion is part of you now, its power available when needed. Asterisk. Will I see you again? Naruto asked, suddenly reluctant to leave this place of perfect clarity. Gabriel's smile held both love and certainty. When all 3 aspects of your heritage have been claimed and integrated, we 3 shall meet with you directly, not as echoes through artifacts, but in our true forms. That convergence approaches faster than any of us anticipated. Asterisk. She began to fade, her form becoming transparent as the garden dissolved completely. One last counsel, my son. Seek the celestial archive beneath the Twilight Sanctuary. There, you will find knowledge crucial to understanding the coalition's ultimate plan and the true nature of dimensional convergence. Asterisk. Her final words echoed as she disappeared entirely. Remember that light illuminates but need not burn. Truth reveals but need not condemn. This balance, compassion with clarity, is the heart of angelic wisdom. Asterisk. With those words resonating through his consciousness, Naruto felt himself returning to physical awareness. The transition was not gentle. Pain lanced through him as his triple nature struggled to accommodate the newly strengthened angelic essence. Where draconic energy had integrated relatively smoothly, c.e. celestial power actively conflicted with certain aspects of his being, particularly those connected to his devil heritage. He gasped, breaking the surface of the sanctuary pool. The water steamed around him, responding to the energy surging through his form. Hinata and Shikamaru rushed forward, concern evident in their expressions, but Miyako held them back with a raised hand. The integration is incomplete, she warned. Touching him now could harm you. Indeed, Naruto's body had become a battleground of opposing forces. Light radiated from his skin in pulsing waves, concentrated particularly around his heart where the pinion had merged with his essence. His eyes, when he managed to open them, blazed with silver radiance that cast harsh shadows across the courtyard. Most concerning was T.'s reaction occurring where this light touched certain aspects of his power. The contract blade, which had materialized unbidden at his hip, smoked and hissed as if being purified against its nature. Portions of his skin where draconic scales had previously manifested now showed intricate, luminous patterns that seemed to be rewriting his very cellular structure. Fight. Through it, he managed to say more to himself than those watching. Balance, not dominance. Drawing on the knowledge Gabriel had imparted, Naruto focused on the principle of harmonious revelation, truth that illuminates without destroying. Gradually, the painful conflict subsided. The light emanating from his body didn't dim but rather refined, becoming less harsh and more penetrating. His eyes still glowed but with controlled radiance rather than overwhelming brilliance. When he finally stepped from the pool, he was changed, not as dramatically as after his draconic trial, but significantly nonetheless. The most obvious difference was in his eyes, which now contained flecks of silver that occasionally caught the light with preternatural luminance. His movements carried a new precision, as if each action were guided by perfect understanding of its purpose and consequence. Naruto-kun, Hinata approached cautiously. Are you still you? The question might have seemed strange, but Naruto understood her concern. The angelic essence had indeed attempted to purify aspects of his being that it perceived as corrupted or darkened. Had he allowed it free rein, it might have fundamentally altered his personality and memories to align with a more celestial perspective. Still me, he assured her with a smile that felt simultaneously more compassionate and more knowing than before. Just with better vision. The Trinity child has received the Seraphim's blessing, Miyako observed, her form shifting slightly to reveal multiple overlapping versions of herself. The second aspect awakens. Shik. Amaru studied Naruto with analytical precision. Your chakra signature has changed again. More precise somehow. Less wild than after your dragon transformation. Angelic energy operates on principles of perfect order and revelation. Naruto explained, drawing on his newly acquired knowledge. It refines rather than transforms, illuminates rather than adapts. Did you see Gabriel? Hinata asked, her evolved Byakugan activating briefly to observe his altered energy patterns. An aspect of her, Naruto confirmed. And she told me something important. There's a celestial archive beneath T's sanctuary that contains crucial information about the coalition and dimensional convergence. Miyako's expression registered surprise. The hidden archives are known only to the highest initiates of the sanctuary. How could you? She stopped, understanding dawning. Of course, the Lady of Light would know of them. She helped establish this sanctuary in the ancient past. Can you take us there? Naruto asked. The shrine maiden hesitated. The path to the archives requires passing through the purification chambers. For beings of mixed essence such as yourself, that passage can be challenging. Because of my demonic heritage, Naruto surmised. Yes, the chambers were designed to prevent corrupted entities from reaching the sacred knowledge below. They cannot distinguish between natural demonic essence and corrupting influence. Naruto considered this obstacle, then made a decision. I need to access that knowledge. If it means enduring some discomfort, so be it. More than discomfort, Miyako warned. Potential agony for one of your nature. The purification energies will attempt to excise what they perceive as darkness from your being. Then I'll just have to convince them that not all darkness is corruption, Naruto replied with determination. My demonic aspect is as much a part of me as the angelic or draconic. Balance requires all three. Miyako studied him thoughtfully, then nodded. Very well, follow me. As they moved deeper into the sanctuary complex, Naruto became aware of a subtle change in his perception. The dimensional shifting he had noticed earlier now appeared more structured, not random fluctuations but meaningful transitions between different aspects of reality. What had seemed like visual distortions now revealed themselves as glimpses into the sanctuary's simultaneous existence across multiple planes. You're seeing more clearly now, Hinata observed, noting his attentive gaze. The pinion enhanced your perception. It's like having dimensional vision, he confirmed. I can see how this place exists in different states simultaneously. He glanced at her curiously. Can your Byakugan perceive this too? Something similar, she acknowledged. Though less integrated than your experience. I see overlapping layers rather than simultaneous states. They reached an unassuming building at the rear of the complex. Unlike the Thayer structures with their shifting appearances, this one remained perfectly stable, a simple shrine that seemed almost too ordinary compared to its surroundings. The descent gate, Miyako identified it. The entrance appears mundane by design, to discourage casual interest. Inside, the building contained only a circular platform inlaid with symbols that glowed with subtle radiance. Miyako positioned herself at its center and gestured for them to join her. Once we begin descent, we cannot return until reaching the archives, she warned. The purification chambers allow only downward progress until the journey is complete. Troublesome, Shikamaru sighed, but stepped onto the platform without hesitation. But necessary, I suppose. When all four stood at the center, Miyako closed her eyes in concentration. The symbols beneath their feet brightened, then began to rotate slowly, creating patterns of increasing complexity. A sensation of gentle descent overtook them, though the platform itself didn't appear to move. Dimensional transition, Naruto recognized, his enhanced perception identifying the subtle shifting of reality around them. We're moving between overlapping states of the sanctuary. The ordinary shrine disappeared, replaced by a crystalline chamber that descended deep into the mountain. Light emanated from the walls themselves, pure and penetrating. As they continued downward, Naruto felt the first touch of discomfort, a slight pressure against his demonic essence, as if the light were trying to push it out of his being. The first level of purification, Miyako explained, noting his reaction, relatively gentle, designed to warn corrupted entities away before the stronger barriers activate. Indeed, the pressure remained manageable, more irritating than painful. Naruto focused on maintaining internal balance, not allowing his angelic aspect to dominate despite the environmental encouragement to do so. The descent continued, passing through several levels of increasing luminosity. With each transition, the pressure against Naruto's demonic essence intensified. By the fourth level, sweat beaded on his forehead as he actively resisted the purification energies attempting to cleanse him of what they perceived as corruption. Your resistance is impressive, Miyako noted with professional interest. Most beings of mixed nature cannot pass the third level without surrendering their darker aspects. I'm not surrendering any part of myself, Naruto replied through gritted teeth. That's the whole point. The platform continued its descent, entering a chamber of such intense radiance that Hinata and Shikamaru had to shield their eyes. Naruto, however, found he could see perfectly, his newly awakened angelic perception adapting to the celestial light. Here, the pressure became genuine pain. The purification energy directly attacked his demonic essence, attempting to burn it away like impurities from metal. The contract blade at his hip emitted smoke and seemed to shrink slightly, its material integrity compromised by the overwhelming light. Naruto-kun, Hinata reached toward him in concern, but Miyako caught her hand. Do not interfere, the shrine maiden warned. The process must be completed naturally. Intervention could destabilize the entire system. Naruto fell to one knee, his body trembling with the effort of maintaining internal harmony against external purification. The angelic aspect within him responded to the surrounding energy, growing stronger and more dominant, threatening to overwhelm the careful balance he had established. In this moment of crisis, a new understanding blossomed. Gabriel had spoken of discernment, when to illuminate and when to temper your light. The purification chamber operated on absolute principles. All darkness must be eliminated. But true angelic wisdom, as Gabriel had shared, recognized that darkness was not inherently corruption. Drawing on this insight, Naruto reached for the seraphim's pinion integrated within his chest. Rather than fighting against the purification energy, he redirected his awakened angelic power to illuminate his demonic essence from within, not to destroy it, but to reveal its true nature. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The light emanating from his body changed quality, becoming less harsh and more revealing. Through this illumination, the chamber's purification systems could perceive the truth, that his demonic aspect was not corruption but a natural, integrated component of a harmonious whole. The pain subsided as the external purification energy recalibrated, no longer recognizing his demonic essence as a target for cleansing. Naruto rose to his feet, his body still glowing with inner light but now in perfect equilibrium. Extraordinary, Miyako whispered, genuine awe breaking through her composed demeanor. You didn't suppress your darkness or surrender to the light. You illuminated the darkness itself, revealing its place in the greater harmony. Quote, balance through revelation, Naruto said, understanding blooming fully. Not destroying opposing forces but seeing their true relationship. The platform completed its descent, arriving at a massive pair of doors crafted from material that resembled mother of pearl but radiated subtle energy patterns across its surface. Symbols etched into their surface rearranged themselves as the group approached, forming new configurations that seemed to respond specifically to Naruto's presence. The archive recognizes you, Miyako observed with surprise. The D-ers usually require complex rituals to open, but they're responding to you directly. Indeed, without any action on their part, the massive doors began to swing inward, revealing a space that defied conventional architecture. The celestial archive extended before them, not a mere library but a vast, seemingly infinite expanse where knowledge took physical form. Shelves stretched in impossible directions, containing books bound in materials from across multiple dimensions. Floating crystals projected three-dimensional images of historical events and cosmic phenomena. Pools of luminous liquid reflected scenes from realms beyond mortal comprehension. Most striking were the beings moving among these collections, not human or even humanoid, but entities of pure light and geometric precision that seemed to exist partially outside conventional reality. Archivist angels, Miyako identified them quietly. Lesser celestials tasked with maintaining the collected knowledge of multiple dimensions. They rarely acknowledge mortal visitors. As if hearing her words, one of the luminous entities turned toward their group. It had no discernible face, yet Naruto sensed its attention focusing specifically on him. After a moment's consideration, it approached, its movement more like flowing light than walking. Trinity child, it addressed him, its voice resonating directly in his mind rather than through conventional sound. Your arrival was foretold. The archives have prepared the relevant collections for your examination. The directness of the acknowledgement surprised even Miyako. They've never, she began, then fell silent as the archivist continued. The Lady of Light left specific instructions regarding your visit, it explained to Naruto. Follow, and we will provide what you seek. As the archivist led them deeper into the impossible space, Naruto noticed his companion's varying reactions. Shikamaru's expression combined analytical fascination with strategic assess-me. NT, already considering how this information might be applied to their situation. Hinata moved with reverent wonder, her evolved Byakugan active as she absorbed details beyond normal perception. Miyako followed with the cautious respect of one entering a higher authority's domain. They arrived at a circular area where multiple reading stations surrounded a central crystalline pedestal. Upon this pedestal rested a single object, a book bound in material that shifted between various states of matter, its cover adorned with a symbol combining elements of angelic, draconic, and demonic scripts. The Convergence Codex, the archivist identified it, compiled through millennia of observation across multiple dimensions. It contains the complete history of realm separation and natural convergence cycles, including the formation and activities of the organization you know as the Coalition. Naruto approached the pedestal, feeling the Seraphim's pinion resonate within his chest as he neared the book. May I? It was assembled for you, the archivist confirmed. When the lady foresaw your eventual coming, she commissioned this compilation to prepare you for your role. With reverent care, Naruto lifted the codex. Despite its apparent substance, it felt lighter than expected, almost as if it existed partially in another dimension. As his fingers touched the cover, it responded to his contact. The shifting material stabilizing into a form resembling burnished gold inlaid with living crystal. The book adapts to the reader's nature, the archivist explained. For you, it assumes a form accessible to your triple essence. Naruto opened the codex, finding pages that contained not mere text but living knowledge, images that moved, symbols that conveyed concepts beyond language, diagrams that expanded into three-dimensional models when studied closely. Most remarkably, the information presented itself in exactly the form most comprehensible to him personally, drawing on his experiences and understanding to communicate complex cosmic principles. As he began to read, the knowledge flowed into him with perfect clarity. The codex revealed the true history of dimensional separation, how, in the primordial past, all realms existed in harmonic overlap, energies and beings flowing naturally between them according to cosmic rhythms. This natural state allowed for maximum creativity, and evolution while maintaining fundamental order through balanced exchange. Then came the first artificial separation, initiated by beings who discovered they could harvest the tension energy created when natural flow was restricted. The codex showed their initial justifications, claims about protecting, purer, realms from corrupting influences, arguments about preventing cosmic instability through controlled barriers. Over millennia, these separations increased, with powerful entities from various realms joining the effort for their own reasons, some genuinely believing in the necessity of division, others seeking the power harvested from dimensional tension. Eventually, this loose association formalized into what became known as the Dimensional Equilibrium Coalition. Most disturbing were the pages detailing the consequences of prolonged artificial separation. The codex showed with mathematical precision how restricted flow created building pressure within the cosmic system, sure that would eventually result in catastrophic rupture if natural convergence cycles remained suppressed. The coalition isn't preventing catastrophe, Naruto realized aloud. They're causing it. Precisely, the archivist confirmed. Natural convergence operates cyclically, periods of greater separation followed by periods of increased permeability, like cosmic breathing. By artificially maintaining maximum separation beyond natural duration, they create instability that threatens all connected dimensions. But why? Hinata asked, looking up from another text she had been examining. Quote, if the consequences are so clearly destructive. Power, Shikamaru answered, studying a crystal displaying coalition energy harvesting operations. The energy they collect from dimensional tension has made them nearly unstoppable within their respective realms. They won't surrender that advantage easily, even facing cosmic destruction. There is another factor, the archivist added. Many high-ranking coalition members genuinely believe dimensional separation is necessary for cosmic health. Their models ignore natural convergence cycles, treating any blending of realms as corruption rather than necessary exchange. Naruto continued through the codex, finding sections specifically addressing his unique nature. According to celestial records, the union of dragon, angel, and devil had been attempted several times throughout cosmic history, always resulting in failure as the opposing energies destroyed each other or the host being. His successful existence represented an unprecedented breakthrough, living proof that harmony between traditionally opposed forces was possible. That's why they fear you so specifically, Miyako observed, reading over his shoulder. Your very existence contradicts their fundamental belief system. And why my parents created me in the first place, Naruto added, understanding deepening. Not just as a weapon against the coalition, but as proof of concept, evidence that integration is not only possible but beneficial. The codex continued, revealing information about the harmonic suppression network that Tiamat had mentioned. This massive system of interconnected devices placed at strategic points throughout multiple dimensions worked to artificially strengthen barriers between realms. According to celestial calculations, the network had nearly reached critical capacity, the point beyond which natural convergence would become impossible, leading to eventual cosmic stagnation and collapse. Most urgently, the codex detailed the coalition's accelerated timeline. Having detected signs of Naruto's awakening, they had activated the final phase of the network earlier than planned, a desperate attempt to prevent the natural convergence cycle from beginning. We have less time than we thought, Naruto said grimly. According to these calculations, once the network reaches full power, dimensional travel becomes nearly impossible. We'd be trapped in whatever realm we're occupying when the barriers solidify. How long? Shikamaru asked, instantly focusing on strategic implications. Naruto studied the complex temporal formulas in the codex. 2 weeks, perhaps less. The process accelerates exponentially once past a certain threshold, which they've already crossed. Then we must move quickly to locate your devil artifact, Hinata concluded. Before the barriers become impenetrable. As Naruto turned to the final section of the codex, he found information specifically about his third heritage token, the artifact connected to his demonic lineage. Unlike the relatively direct clues about the draconic and angelic tokens, this information was more cryptic, written in a combination of celestial and infernal script that even the codex's adaptive properties couldn't fully clarify. The binding key lies in Shadow's heart, where oaths are kept and broken, he read aloud. Where crimson royalty guards its secrets behind 7 veils of deception. The underworld, Miyako suggested. Specifically, devil territory rather than the general afterlife realms. That's a massive area to search, Shikamaru pointed out. Underworld contains countless regions and factions according to these records. Naruto continued reading, finding additional clues. The path opens only to Blood's command, where 3 rivers meet beneath the crimson moon. Seek the Duchess of Silver Snow, who walks between loyalty and freedom. Duchess of Silver Snow, Hinata repeated, the title clearly significant. The archivist, who had remained silent during their study, now interjected. That designation refers to a specific devil noble, one known for unusual independence despite formal ties to the Gremory clan. Gremory, Naruto repeated, the name triggering recognition. That was Sirzek's family name before he became Lucifer. Correct. the archivist confirmed. The Duchess serves House Grimoire still, but maintains her own territory and authority. She is known for unconventional perspectives regarding dimensional separation. This information suggested a potential ally in their quest to enter the underworld. Before Naruto could inquire further, however, a disturbance rippled through the archive. The luminous entities moved with sudden purpose, their geometric forms reconfiguring into more defensive patterns. Incursion at the surface level, the archivist announced, its resonant voice tinged with concern. Coalition forces have breached the sanctuary's outer barriers. Miyako's expression tightened with alarm. How? The sanctuary's protections have stood unchallenged for millennia. They employed a new technology, the archivist replied. Harmony disruptors calibrated specifically to the sanctuary's resonance frequency. They must have detected our dimensional transit, Shikamaru concluded grimly. Despite Yasaka's masking crystals, Naruto closed the codex, decision made. We need to leave before they track us to the archive. Is there another exit? One that doesn't require returning to the surface? The archivist's luminous form pulsed with what might have been approval. The lady anticipated such necessity. There exists a direct pathway to a dimensional nexus point, one not under coalition monitoring. Where does it lead? Hinata asked. To the mortal realm, but at a significant distance from this location. The archivist replied. A place of natural dimensional thinning where transit signatures are difficult to distinguish from background fluctuations. Perfect, Naruto decided. Miyako, will you be safe here? The shrine maiden smiled serenely despite the crisis. The sanctuary has survived countless threats throughout its existence. We have protocols for coalition incursions. Her form briefly shifted, revealing multiple overlapping versions of herself in various states of combat readiness. I am not merely a guide, Trinity child. Reassured by her confidence, Naruto turned to the archivist. Please, show us this exit path. As the entity led them through the archive's impossible architecture, Naruto secured the Convergence Codex in his pack, sensing its importance to their mission. Around them, the archive shifted into defensive configuration, knowledge repositories sealing themselves behind barriers of light, access points reconfiguring to maze-like complexity. Archivist angels assuming more martial geometries. They reached a section that appeared to be a dead end, a blank wall of pearl-like material similar to the archive's entrance doors. The archivist approached it, its luminous form interfacing directly with the surface. Symbols appeared, rearranging themselves in complex patterns before the wall dissolved entirely, revealing a corridor. It seemed to bend away from conventional space. This passage connects to a natural convergence point in your world, the archivist explained. A location where dimensional barriers thin cyclically without coalition interference. From there, you must determine your path to the underworld. Thank you for your assistance, Naruto said sincerely. The archivist's form pulsed once more. We serve knowledge and truth, Trinity child. Your quest embodies both. It extended what might have been considered a limb, though it appeared more as a concentrated stream of light. Before you depart, accept this. The light coalesced into a small crystal sphere that hovered before Naruto. A communication focus, the archivist identified it. It will allow you to access certain portions of the archive's knowledge remotely. Though only basic information rather than restricted texts. Naruto accepted the gift with gratitude, sensing it would prove invaluable in navigating the complex dimensional politics ahead. With final farewells to Miyako and the archivist, he led Hinata and Shikamaru into the escape corridor, the wall resealing behind them as they passed. The passage was disorienting, not a Icicle tunnel but a conceptual space where direction seemed arbitrary and distance meaningless. Light came from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, creating no shadows despite illuminating their progress perfectly. Most strange was the sensation of moving without actual motion, as if they remained stationary while reality flowed around them. Dimensional transit without conventional travel, Naruto explained, drawing on his expanded knowledge. We're passing through a conceptual connection rather than physical space. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered, though his expression showed fascination rather than complaint. These non-standard movement methods make tactical planning nearly impossible. That's precisely why they're effective against the coalition, Naruto pointed out. Their control systems are designed to monitor conventional dimensional breaches. This kind of transit falls outside their detection parameters. After what felt like both moments and hours simultaneously, the passage began to solidify around them, transitioning back to conventional reality. The light shifted from omnidirectional to normal environmental illumination, and physical sensation returned to their movement. They emerged into a forest clearing unlike any in their familiar territories. Ancient trees towered around them, their massive trunks covered in luminescent fungi that provided gentle illumination in the deepening twilight. The air carried strange scents, sweet, metallic undertones mixed with floral notes from unfamiliar blossoms that opened only at dusk. Where are we? Hinata wondered, her evolved Byakugan activating to scan their surroundings. Still in our world, Naruto confirmed, his enhanced senses cataloging the subtle dimensional frequencies. But far from the Twilight Sanctuary. This is, he paused, orienting himself through an instinctual understanding of ley line patterns. The Shadow Forest, near the eastern coast of the continent. We've traveled hundreds of kilometers instantaneously. I recognize this region from historical texts, Shikamaru said, studying the distinctive flora. It's said to be spiritually active, a place where the boundary between living and dead occasionally thins. A natural convergence point between the mortal realm and aspects of the underworld, Naruto agreed, understanding why the archive had connected to this location. It should provide cover for our next transition, once we determine how to proceed. Before they could discuss further, a sound caught their attention, metallic clanking approaching through the forest. Hinata's Byakugan immediately focused in that direction. Armed figures, she reported. 6 of them, moving with purpose. Not coalition design based on previous encounters, but definitely not ordinary humans either. Naruto extended his senses, the Seraphim's pinion enhancing his perception beyond normal limitations. What he detected surprised him. They're holy warriors. I can sense blessed weapons and protective faith energies. Quote, the church, Shikamaru questioned, immediately calculating defensive positions. This far from any established temple. Let me handle this, Naruto decided, stepping forward as the figures emerged from the forest shadow. They were indeed warriors of a religious order, armored in distinctive plate mail adorned with crosses and other holy symbols, carrion weapons that gleamed with subtle blessing energies. Their leader, a tall figure whose face remained hidden behind a visored helmet, raised a hand to halt the group's advance. Identify yourselves, boundary crossers. The leader commanded, voice muffled but distinctly female. This forest is under church protection. Naruto considered his response carefully. The truth seemed both risky and necessary. I am Naruto Uzumaki. These are my companions, Hinata Hyuga and Shikamaru Nara. We seek passage to find the third artifact of my heritage. The leader's posture stiffened slightly. What heritage do you claim? Again, truth seemed the only viable option, especially given his newly enhanced angelic aspects. I am the son of 3 realms, dragon, angel, and devil united. The coalition calls me the Trinity child. This declaration caused immediate reaction. Several warriors raised their weapons defensively, while others made protective gestures against perceived heresy. The leader, however, remained still, studying Naruto with intensity he could feel despite her concealed face. After a tense moment, she reached up and removed her helmet, revealing striking features framed by blue hair with a green highlight. Her expression combined wariness with unmistakable curiosity. I am Zenobia Quarta, executioner of the church's special duty division, she introduced herself formally. We were dispatched to investigate dimensional disturbances in this region. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Your claim is unprecedented. Such a union of opposing forces should be impossible. Yet here I stand, Naruto replied simply. Zenovia's gaze intensified. Prove the angelic portion of your claim. Devils and dragons can deceive, but angelic essence cannot counterfeit its true nature. It was a reasonable request. Though potentially dangerous, Naruto knew that manifesting his angelic aspect too strongly might trigger conflict with his demonic heritage again. However, controlled demonstration seemed necessary to establish credibility. Drawing on the Seraphim's pinion integrated within his chest, Naruto allowed a measured amount of celestial energy to surface. Silver light emanated from his eyes, and a subtle glow surrounded his form, not overwhelming, but unmistakably angelic in quality. The revelation carried the distinctive harmonic resonance that characterized true celestial power, impossible to falsify. The effect on the church warriors was immediate. Several dropped to one knee in instinctive reverence, while others stepped back in astonishment. Zenobia herself remained standing, but her expression transformed from suspicion to confused wonder. Impossible, she whispered, yet clearly believing the evidence of her senses. Angelic essence coexisting with her TRA. In perception had clearly detected the underlying currents of draconic and demonic energy contained within his being. Not impossible, Naruto corrected gently, allowing the manifestation to subside. Simply unprecedented. My existence proves that traditional oppositions between cosmic forces are more flexible than commonly believed. Zenobia struggled visibly with this revelation, her life religious training conflicting with undeniable evidence before her. The church teaches that devils are irredeemably corrupt, that dragons are chaotic destroyers, that only angelic purity can. Dogma created to maintain separation. Naruto interrupted, drawing on knowledge from the Convergence Codex. Tell me, Executioner Quarta, has your faith ever questioned why beings of light, void, and Re cannot coexist when the Creator supposedly made all things? The question struck a nerve. Something flickered in Zenobia's expression, a hint that this wasn't the first time such thoughts had occurred to her. My mission parameters include investigating dimensional anomalies and evaluating potential threats to the spiritual balance, she said carefully, professional training reasserting itself. Your presence qualifies as both. I am obligated to report this encounter. To whom? Shikamaru asked shrewdly. The church proper, or its coalition affiliates? Zenobia's gaze snapped to him, surprise evident. How do you know about that connection? The Celestial Archive contains comprehensive records of coalition formation and membership, Hinata explained, speaking for the first time since the encounter began. Including how they've infiltrated religious organizations across multiple realms to promote separation dogma. This information clearly disturbed Zenobia. The archive is restricted to the highest celestial authorities. No mortal should have access to such knowledge. Unless guided there by angelic direction, Naruto pointed out. The Seraphim's pinion led us to that knowledge for a reason. The mention of the pinion visibly impacted Zenobia. You possess an actual artifact from the higher spheres. Not merely essence, but physical celestial material. Naruto nodded, allowing a brief illumination over his heart where the pinion had merged with his being. A gift from Gabriel herself, left in the Twilight Sanctuary for when I was ready to claim it. At the Archangel's name, Zenobia's professional composure cracked further. She turned to her subordinates, decision made. Secure a perimeter. I will speak with these individuals privately. When one warrior began to object, she silenced them with a sharp gesture. That's an order. Maintain distance but remain vigilant. As her team reluctantly withdrew to establish a watch circle around the clearing, Via turned back to Naruto and his companions. Her expression had transformed from authoritative to troubled. 3 months ago, I began having dreams, she confessed, voice lowered. Visions of dimensional walls collapsing. Of beings from separated realms coming together in harmony rather than conflict. When I reported these dreams to my superiors, I was assigned to this mission, supposedly to investigate anomalies. But I suspect the true purpose was to remove me from church headquarters. The coalition silencing questions, Shikamaru surmised. Perhaps. Zenobia's gaze returned to Naruto. In my dreams, there was always a figure of triple light, radiance that combined celestial brilliance, draconic iridescence, and devil fire in perfect balance. A harbinger of cosmic reconfiguration. Me, Naruto realized. You've been seeing prophetic visions of the convergence. She nodded slowly, which means either I've been blessed with divine foresight, or your connection to these events isn't coincidental. Hinata completed the thought. Like my Byakugan's evolution and Yasaka's territorial placement. Patterns forming around the convergence. Zenobia studied them all with new consideration. You seek the underworld to claim your devil heritage artifact. Yes, Naruto confirmed. Before the harmonic suppression network reaches full power and makes dimensional transit impossible. This information seemed to solidify something in Zenobia's decision-making. There is a passage nearby. A natural thin point between realms that the church monitors rather than reports to wider authorities. It doesn't lead directly to devil territory, but to a neutral zone within the underworld from which you could potentially travel further. You would help us? Naruto asked. Somewhat, sir. prized by this offer from a church executioner. Zenovia's expression became resolute. I have dedicated my life to truth and divine purpose. If true divinity, as represented by an archangel's direct involvement, supports your quest, then rigid church doctrine must be reconsidered. Her hand rested on the massive sword at her hip, a weapon Naruto now recognized as spiritually significant. Durandal guides me toward truth, not merely obedience. The holy sword that cuts anything. Shikamaru identified it with raised eyebrows. I thought it was merely legend. Many legends have concrete reality in the wider cosmos. Zenovia replied. As you're discovering. She glanced at the perimeter where her team maintained watch. I cannot openly defy my mission, but I can exercise discretion in its execution. I will show you the passage and report that it was already used before our arrival, technically true, if not complete. Thank you, Naruto said sincerely. The convergence needs allies from all realms, especially those willing to question established boundaries. Zenovia nodded once, decision finalized. Follow me, but remain alert. This forest contains more than church patrols, beings attracted to dimensional thin points often establish territory nearby. As she led them deeper into the increasingly dark forest, Hinata moved closer to Naruto. Your angelic aspect manifested more smoothly that time, she observed quietly. Less conflict with your other natures. The pinion's integration is progressing, he confirmed. I'm learning to balance revelation with acceptance, seeing truth without condemning difference. A lesson some religious organizations could benefit from, Shikamaru commented dryly, glancing toward Zenovia who walked slightly ahead. The church warrior either didn't hear or chose not to respond, focused on navigating the increasingly dense undergrowth. The luminescent fungi grew more prevalent as they proceeded, providing eerie blue-green illuminatio. And that cast strange shadows among the ancient trees. After nearly 30 minutes of careful progress, they reached a small clearing dominated by a perfect circle of massive stones. Unlike typical megalithic arrangements, these stones appeared to be growing from the forest floor, their surfaces covered in the same luminescent organisms that adorned the trees. Most striking was the space between air that seemed to shimmer and distort, occasionally revealing glimpses of a landscape that definitely wasn't part of the mortal forest. The Veil Circle, Zenovia identified it. A natural bounda, weakness that cycles with lunar phases. Tonight, with the moon approaching fullness, the passage is at maximum permeability. Naruto extended his senses, evaluating the dimensional properties of the site. His triple nature allowed him to perceive aspects beyond even Zenovia's specialized training. It's not just a passage to the underworld, he noted with surprise. This circle connects to multiple afterlife realms simultaneously, a true crossroads. Zenovia nodded, impressed by his perception. The church monitoring logs indicate at least 7 distinct destination patterns, though most remain stable for only brief periods. The underworld connection is the most consistent, which is why it's useful for your purpose. How do we select our destination? Hinata asked, her Byakugan studying the energy patterns flowing between the stones. Intention and essence, Zenovia explained. The passage responds to the nature of those who enter. My team uses blessed tokens to ensure proper arrival when we conduct authorized transits. Naruto considered this, then withdrew the contract blade that had materialized during his angelic integration. Its midnight black metal had fully recovered. From the purification chamber's effects, the crimson runes along its surface glowing with subtle power. This should suffice, he decided. It's connected to my devil heritage, it should guide us to the appropriate region. Zenovia eyed the weapon with professional interest. A devil contract blade, extremely rare outside higher underworld circles. Her gaze returned to Naruto with new evaluation. Your demonic lineage must be significant indeed. Sears Lucifer, he confirmed quietly. Formerly of House Grimori, this revelation visibly shocked even Zenovia's disciplined composure. A devil king, she whispered, combined with draconic divinity and angelic grace. The implications are revolutionary, Shikamaru completed dryly. Hence the coalition's determination to eliminate him. Recovering her professional demeanor, Zenovia stepped back from the stone circle. The passage activates when you enter the center with clear intention. I recommend focusing on neutral territory. Why initially? The outer regions rather than core devil domains. Coalition monitoring is less intensive in Borderlands. You're not coming with us? Hinata asked, somewhat surprised. Xenovia shook her head regretfully. My duties require me to remain. However, she reached beneath her armor and withdrew a small silver cross on a chain. Take this. It contains my blessing essence. If you require church assistance in the underworld, it will guide potential allies to recognize you as under unofficial protection. Naruto accepted the gift, careful to wrap it in cloth before storing it to prevent reaction with his demonic aspects. Thank you, Executioner Quarta. Your assistance won't be forgotten when the convergence completes. I don't act for reward, she replied with dignity, then hesitated before adding. But I would appreciate clarification when your mission succeeds. My faith remains important to me, even as my understanding of cosmic structure evolves. Understanding is exactly what the convergence offers, Naruto assured her, not the destruction of faith, but its expansion beyond artificial limitations. This answer seemed to satisfy her. With a formal bow that nagged to convey both respect and professional distance, Xenovia stepped further back from the circle. I will ensure my team maintains distance until your transit completes. May your path be true, Trinity child. With that blessing, surprising from a church warrior to a being of partial demonic nature, she disappeared into the forest shadows, leaving them alone with the shimmering passage. She'll face difficult questions from her superiors, Shikamaru noted as they approached the center of the stone circle. Helping us contradicts her official mission. Some truths transcend institutional loyalty, Hinata observed quietly. She recognized something more important than dogma. Naruto nodded agreement as he held the contract blade before him, focusing his intention on their destination. The boundaries between realms aren't just physical or energetic, they're conceptual. When enough beings begin questioning those concepts, natural convergence accelerates, Shikamaru completed, grasping the implication. Our journey itself weakens artificial separation by changing how people think about cosmic divisions. Exactly. Naruto stepped into the exact center of the circle, his companions close beside him. Ready. At their nods of confirmation, he channeled intention through the contract blade, focusing specifically on the neutral territories of the underworld, the Borderlands. Where their arrival might escape immediate coalition detection. The air within the circle thickened, light bending around them as reality itself began to fold. Unlike previous dimensional transitions, this passage felt both gentler and more profound, not forcing reality to bend but simply stepping through a door that already existed. The forest around them faded from perception, replaced by swirling mists that contained fragments of multiple possible destinations. For a breathless moment, they existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, their consciousness stretched across potential realities. Then, with a sensation like passing through a membrane, they emerged into a landscape that defied conventional expectations of the underworld. Rather than the fire and brimstone of human mythology, they found themselves in a twilight realm of austere beauty, a vast plain where crystalline formations erupted from dark soil, illuminated by a crimson moon that hung impossibly large in a star-filled sky. The Ashen Marches. Naruto identified their location, knowledge rising from his awakening devil heritage. Outer territories of the underworld, unclaimed by any major faction. Hinata activated her Byakugan, scanning their surroundings. The dimensional frequency here is strange. More stable than I expected, almost rigid. The underworld exists under different cosmic laws than mortal realms, Naruto explained. His understanding expanding as his demonic essence responded to their environment. Time flows differently. Space operates under alternative rules. Even perception follows unique patterns. Shikamaru surveyed the alien landscape with tactical precision. I assume we can't just walk straight to devil territory from here. No, Naruto confirmed. The underworld is strictly organized despite its chaotic reputation. Boundaries between territories are enforced through ancient pacts and power arrangements. We need to navigate carefully, both physically and politically. As they spoke, the contract blade in Naruto's hand pulsed with increased energy, its crimson runes brightening in response to the underworld's ambient power. He felt his demonic essence strengthening subtly, becoming more accessible without overwhelming his other aspects. The blade is responding to this realm, he noted. It might help guide us toward devil territory. Before they could determine their next move, movement caught their attention. shapes approaching across the crystalline plane. Unlike the church warriors or coalition forces they had encountered previously, these figures seemed less solid. Their forms shifting between defined physicality and smoky approximation. Border wardens, Naruto identified them, again drawing on instinctual knowledge. They monitor unauthorized entries to the underworld. Hostile, Shikamaru asked, already calculating defensive positions. Not necessarily, Naruto replied. They enforce rules rather than taking sides. If we can establish legitimate purpose for our presence, they might provide guidance rather than opposition. As the wardens drew closer, their appearance became clearer, humanoid figures composed of shadow and smoke. Wearing armor that seemed formed from crystallized darkness. They carried no visible weapons, but power radiated from them in palpable waves. Boundary crossers, the lead warden addressed them, I.T.'s voice echoing as if coming from multiple throats simultaneously. Identify your nature and purpose in the Ashen Marches. Naruto stepped forward, allowing his demonic aspect to surface slightly, not dominantly, but enough to establish relevant credentials. I am Naruto Uzumaki, of Triple Heritage. These are my companions under my protection. We seek passage to Devil territory on legitimate blood business. The warden studied him with eyes that shifted between solid black and swirling void. Triple Heritage, it questioned, clearly detecting the unusual mixture of energies within him. Specify lineage. Dragon, Angel, and Devil, Naruto stated directly. My devil lineage connects to House Grimoire through Seerzex Lucifer himself. This declaration created visible disturbance among the wardens. Their smoky forms rippling with reaction. The leader's gaze intensified, seemingly peering beyond physical appearance to essence itself. The claim is verified in blood signature, it finally announced. Devil royal lineage confirmed, though mixed with unprecedented elements. Naruto felt relief at this acknowledgement, which established their legitimate presence without revealing his full Trinity child status. We seek the one known as the Duchess of Silver Snow, connected to House Grimoire but maintaining independent authority. This request caused another ripple of reaction among the wardens. The leader's form solidified slightly, becoming more definitively humanoid as it made a decision. Such a journey requires proper documentation and safe passage tokens, it stated formally. However, given verified blood connection to Devil royalty, provisional escort can be arranged to the nearest formal border crossing. From there, you must obtain official recognition from Devil authorities. That would be most helpful, Naruto acknowledged with appropriate formality. The warden gestured, and one of its companions separated from the group, its form reshaping into something more definitively guide-like. This aspect will conduct you to Crimson Gate. Beyond that boundary, Devil law supersedes neutral territory protocols. As the designated guide approached, Hinata whispered to Naruto, "Can we trust them? They seem ambiguous in nature. Border wardens serve cosmic law rather than factions," he explained quietly. They're neutral by design and function. Their existence predates most underworld political structures. With cautious optimism, they follow the assigned guide across the crystalline plains, leaving the other wardens to resume their boundary patrol. The underworld landscape remained hauntingly beautiful in its alien way, formations that resembled glass forests catching the crimson moonlight, occasional floating islands of dark stone suspended above the plain. Distant mountain ranges that appeared to be carved from single massive gemstones. As they traveled, Naruto felt his demonic essence continuing to strengthen, responding to the underworld's native energies. Unlike the painful conflict he had experienced when his angelic aspect awakened, this process felt more natural, as if parts of himself long dormant were simply waking up, stretching after prolonged sleep. The contract blade maintained its subtle pulsing, occasionally shifting direction slightly as if confirming their path. Most intriguing was how his triple nature and Terra CTED with the underworld environment, his draconic aspect providing enhanced perception of dimensional currents, his angelic essence illuminating underlying patterns of order within apparent chaos, and his awakening demonic heritage translating the complex social and magical structures around them. The convergence is already happening within you, Hinata observed, her evolved Byakugan tracking these internal developments. Your three aspects aren't fighting for dominance anymore, they're creating a new, integrated system. Balance through complementary function rather than equal distribution, Naruto agreed. Recalling Gabriel's wisdom, each aspect contributing its strengths when appropriate. Their guide led them toward a distant structure that gradually resolved into an imposing gate. I built into what appeared to be a freestanding wall stretching horizon to horizon. Unlike the crystalline formations of the Ashen Marches, this construction was clearly artificial, massive blocks of obsidian-like material fitted together with supernatural precision, adorned with glowing sigils that pulsed with contained power. Crimson Gate, the guide identified as they approached. Primary regulated passage between neutral territory and the outer domains of Devil Society. The gate itself stood at least 30 meters high, its double doors crafted from what appeared to be solidified blue that somehow remained liquid enough to ripple occasionally. Guards stood at attention on either side, not the shifting wardens of the neutral territories, but defined devils in formal military attire that combined archaic armor with elegant styling. Present your claim to the gatekeeper, their guide instructed, stopping several meters from the actual gate. I am not permitted to approach further without specific documentation. Naruto nodded understanding. Thank you for your assistance. The warden's form rippled in what might have been acknowledgement before it turned and began the journey back across the crystalline plain. Approaching the gate with his companions close behind, Naruto felt multiple scanning energies wash over him, magical, spiritual, and essence-based security measures analyzing their nature and intentions. The contract blade at his hip pulsed more strongly, responding to these examinations. One of the guards stepped forward, a tall, imposing devil with features that combined human handsomeness with subtle inhuman elements. His uniform bore insignia that Naruto instinctively recognized as denoting officer rank in the devil military hierarchy. State your business and affiliation, the officer commanded, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that suggested greater power carefully controlled. Once again, Naruto allowed his demonic aspect appropriate prominence without suppressing his other natures. I am Naruto Uzumaki, of triple heritage including devil lineage through Seersex Lucifer of House Grimori. I seek audience with the Duchess of Silver Snow on matters of blood inheritance. The officer's eyes widened slightly, the only break in his professional composure. Triple heritage, verified by the border wardens. Confirmed in blood signature, Naruto affirmed. The guard studied him more intently, clearly detecting the unusual mixture of energies within him. After a moment's consideration, he made a gesture toward the gate. In response, a smaller door, previously invisible within the massive structure, shimmered into existence. Wait within the verification chamber, he instructed. Claims of royal lineage require higher authorization than gate officers can provide. As they proceeded through the smaller door, Hinata whispered, "They're being remarkably accommodating considering our unusual nature. Devil Society values hierarchy and proper procedure." Naruto explained quietly. My claim of connection to Seersex requires formal verification rather than immediate rejection. It's actually a sign of respect that they're processing it through official channels rather than dismissing it outright. The verification chamber proved to be a luxuriously appointed waiting room that somehow managed to be simultaneously welcoming and intimidating. Furniture crafted from materials unknown in the human world provided comfortable seating, while artwork depicting historical events from devil perspective adorned the walls. Most notably, the entire space hummed with contained power, layers of magical monitoring and security systems beyond anything they had encountered previously. They had waited perhaps 15 minutes when the chamber door opened to admit a new figure, a devil woman whose appearance and bearing instantly commanded attention. Tall and statuesque, with silver hair that fell in perfect waves to her waist, she wore a formal outfit that combined military precision with aristocratic elegance. Her expression remained professionally neutral, but her eyes, sharp and perceptive, assessed them with extraordinary thoroughness. I am Grayfia Lucifuge, she introduced herself, her voice cultured and controlled. Chief attendant to House Grimori and personal assistant to Lord Seersex. Naruto felt an immediate connection to this woman. Not romantic but somehow familiar, as if recognizing someone he should know despite never having met her. The contract blade at his hip pulsed once, strongly, then quieted. You claim blood relation to Lord Seersex. She continued, her gaze focused intently on Naruto. Such claims are extremely rare and taken with utmost seriousness in Devil Society. I understand, Naruto replied formally. I make this claim based on direct inheritance, not distant relation. Grayfia's perfectly composed expression flickered momentarily with something unreadable. Direct inheritance would make you his son. Lord Searsex has only one officially recognized child. I was not officially recognized, Naruto acknowledged. My creation was unconventional. My heritage includes not only devil lineage through Searsex Lucifer, but also draconic essence through Tiamat and angelic grace through Gabriel. At this extraordinary claim, even Grayfia's perfect composure cracked slightly. Her eyes widened, and the ambient temperature of the room dropped several degrees as her power reacted to this information. Such a combination should be impossible, she stated, though her tone suggested she was already reassessing this conviction. The energies would destroy each other or the host. Yet here I stand, Naruto replied simply, echoing his response to Xenovia's similar objection. Grayfia studied him with renewed intensity, clearly perceiving beyond physical appearance to the complex energy patterns within. After a long moment, she made a subtle gesture. The security energies permeating the chamber reconfigured, creating a privacy barrier that would prevent their conversation from being monitored. The impossible trinity, she said quietly, her formal demeanor softening slightly. He spoke of this once, years ago, a theory that angelic, draconic, and demonic energies could coexist if properly balanced from inception rather than forced together after formation. You know something about this. Naruto realized, hope rising. About me, rumors, theories, nothing confirmed. Her professional mask reasserted itself. However, your timing is significant. Lord C. Rex has been absent from Devil Affairs for nearly a month, a diplomatic mission to the Dragon Realm, officially. Unofficially, he's preparing for the convergence, Hinata surmised. Grayfia's sharp gaze shifted to her. Your eyes, Hyuga, but evolved beyond standard parameters. Interesting. She turned to Shikamaru. And you possess shadow manipulation abilities connected to the void between dimensions. Though dormant compared to your companions. Troublesome woman, Shikamaru muttered, uncomfortable with her precise assessment. Returning her attention to Naruto, Grayfia made a decision. Standard protocol for unverified lineage claims requires extensive testing and bureaucratic processing. However, given the current cosmic circumstances, expedited measures seem appropriate. From within her formal attire, she withdrew a small crystalline object resembling a prism. This is a blood resonance verifier. It will confirm genetic and essence compatibility with registered devil bloodlines. If your claim is valid, it will respond accordingly. She held out the crystal. Naruto accepted it, understanding instinctively what was required. Calling upon his awakening demonic essence, he channeled a small amount of power into the prism. The crystal responded immediately, flaring with crimson light that then shifted through a complex sequence of colors before settling on a specific pattern, a crimson core with silver-white and iridescent blue outer layers. Grayfia's expression revealed genuine astonishment despite her controlled demeanor. Triple confirmation. Blood lineage to house Grimoire through Searsex, with additional signatures matching registered patterns for entities designated Prime Celestial and Chaos Dragon. She reclaimed the crystal, storing it carefully before regarding Naruto with new evaluation. You sought the Duchess of Silver Snow, she stated rather than asked. What is your purpose with her? According to information from the Celestial Archive, she guards the pathway to my Devil Heritage artifact, Naruto explained. The third token I must claim to complete my awakening. Something changed in Grayfia's demeanor, a subtle shift from professional assessment to personal interest. And if I told you that I am the Duchess of Silver Snow? This revelation surprised all three of them. Naruto quickly reassessed the situation, understanding dawning. You're the one who walks between loyalty and freedom. Chief attendant to house Grimoire but maintaining independent authority. Grayfia inclined her head slightly, acknowledging his correct interpretation. My position is complex. Officially, I serve House Grimoire and Lord Searsex in particular. Unofficially, I maintain certain independent responsibilities, including guardianship of specific artifacts and knowledge. Quote, including my Devil Heritage token, Naruto surmised. Potentially, she confirmed cautiously. If your claims are verified through all appropriate channels. Her eyes met his directly, which would normally require Lord Searsex's personal confirmation. We don't have time for normal protocols, Hinata interjected with uncharacteristic boldness. The Harmonic suppression network is approaching full activation. When it reaches critical threshold, dimensional travel becomes nearly impossible. Grayfia's expression remained unreadable, but the temperature in the room fluctuated briefly, a sign her considerable power was responding to internal calculation. The coalition's timeline has accelerated, then. This aligns with other intelligence we've gathered. She studied Naruto once more. Decision crystallizing. I will escort you to Crimson Bastion, my personal territory within Devil Lands. There, we can conduct appropriate verification without bureaucratic delays. And if verification confirms my claim, Naruto pressed, then I will fulfill my duty as guardian, she replied simply. With a gesture, she dissolved the privacy barrier surrounding them. Follow me. I've arranged appropriate transit authorization. As they exited the verification chamber, the gate guards snapped to attention, clearly recognizing Grayfia's authority. The SSIVE blood doors of Crimson Gate parted before them without command, revealing a landscape dramatically different from the crystalline plains they had traversed. Beyond the gate stretched the outer domains of Devil Territory, a realm of dark elegance rather than the hellish wasteland human mythology might suggest. Architectural marvels rose from landscapes of impossible beauty, buildings that i.e. conventional physics constructed from materials that shimmered with contained power. The crimson moon hung larger here, casting ruby light across scenery that combined natural magnificence with supernatural enhancement. Welcome to Devil Territory, Grayfia stated formally as they passed through the gate. From this point forward, you are under my personal protection and responsibility. Please. Refrain from unauthorized power usage or dimensional manipulation while we travel. A conveyance awaited them, a carriage of elegant design that somehow hovered slightly above the ground, drawn by reachers resembling horses only in general outline. Their actual forms shifted subtly between physical and energy states, manes and tails composed of controlled hellfire that emitted no heat. Shadow steeds, Grayfia identified them, noting their interest. Bred specifically for rapid transit between Devil Territories. As they entered the carriage, its interior far more spacious than external dimensions would suggest, Naruto felt the reality of his situation with renewed intensity. He was in the underworld, being escorted by a high-ranking devil who might hold the key to his final heritage token. With the coalition potentially tracking their movements across dimensions, the convergence was accelerating, both within him and throughout the cosmos. His triple nature continued integrating, reading a harmonious whole greater than its separate parts. Yet the most challenging aspect of his awakening still lay ahead, claiming his devil heritage and completing the trinity that would make him truly the bridge between realms. As the carriage began moving with supernatural speed across the underworld landscape, Naruto gazed out at the realm of his third parent. The crimson moon illuminated their path, casting long shadows that seemed to reach toward them like welcoming hands. Chapter 3 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.